Good evening, everyone. I will call to order the City of Laguna Beach Planning Commission meeting of September 18th, 2024. May I have roll call, please?
Commissioner Goldman? He's absent.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Whiten?
Here.
Commissioner Dubin?
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg?
Here.
Chair Sadler?
Here.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Goldman is absent this evening. Before we begin with our public hearings, there's a portion of our meeting set aside for public communications. That's a period where members of the public can come up and speak to the Planning Commission on items that are not on tonight's agenda, but items that are under our general purview. Is there anybody who would like to make public communications this evening? Seeing none, I will close public communications. And we will go to the consent calendar. The consent calendar this evening consists of one item, which is the September 4th, 2024 Planning Commission draft minutes. Are there any commissioners who would like to pull that item? Any members of the public who would like to pull that item? Seeing none, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Whiten?
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg?
Yes.
Chair Sadler?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to our regular items. Just to kind of run through our general procedure here. Members of the public are welcome to address the Planning Commission concerning any issue on the agenda that is before the Commission. Please be advised that if you testify at a public meeting and provide your name and address, this information will be incorporated into the minutes and become part of the official city records. The usual procedure for public hearing in the Planning Commission is staff summarizes the requests and gives comments. Commissioners may ask questions of staff. The commissioners have visited the site unless noted otherwise. At the public hearing is declared open, and testimony from the floor is heard, beginning with the applicant team and followed by other interested parties. Typically, the applicant team has 5 minutes, and then other members of the public may come up and speak, and we'll have 3 minutes. You will speak at the podium there. There are some lights on the podium that indicate when your time is running out. When the yellow light flashes and you hear a beep, that means you have 30 seconds left. When the red light starts flashing, that means your time's up. And after you're done speaking, we'd ask if you could please print your name on the list that's on the table to the side so that we just get the spelling of your name right for the minutes. We'll begin with our item 5.1, and I believe Commissioner Whiten has to recuse on this item.
Yes, I have to recuse myself because I live within 500 feet of the project.
Thank you. So typically when a commissioner recuses themselves, they leave the room for this particular item. With that, item 5.1 is a general plan consistency 24-1858 about the possible what am I saying? The relinquishing of a real property at that site. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and Planning Commissioners. Jennifer Savage, Project Planner for the item before you. The City of Laguna Beach is requesting a general plan consistency determination this evening. This is related to the city-owned property at 31727 and 31735 Coast Highway, also known as Tiamo. The City Council directed staff earlier this year in April to proceed with the sale of the property in line with Administrative Policy 5-21 and state law. The planning agency is required to make a general plan consistency determination. State law identifies 3 factors to consider when making that determination. That includes the location, the purpose, and the extent. The location of the properties, again, is on Coast Highway, and they are designated in the general plan as local business professional. The purpose of the property disposition is to follow the direction of City Council and refund a loan from the Vehicle Replacement Fund that was taken out to purchase the property. And the extent of the property disposition is the approximately 10,000 square feet of the two parcels. The matter before you this evening is exempt from CEQA, and staff is recommending that the Planning Commission find that the potential sale of the property is consistent with the general plan. This concludes staff presentation, and we are available for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff at this point?
Yeah, I'll start. So the original purpose was to evaluate the site for a new fire station. And so one way that this would not be consistent with the general plan is if by selling the site, it in some manner limits or precludes meeting our fire safety requirements in the city. So I'm assuming that an alternative site has been located and that by selling this property, we in no way limit the ability for the fire department to provide emergency services.
Thank you for the question. We did find a more adequate site, which is why the City Council directed sale of this property.
Then the other, I guess, question would be, are there any other potential public benefits that this site, public benefits consistent with the general plan, that this site could provide, that if it's sold, it would no longer be available to provide, as the staff made that evaluation?
To some degree. We did present that to City Council in April of this year, and after evaluation, they determined it should be sold.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dubin.
Just to reiterate, so if and when the property is sold, those funds are going where again? Have they already been allocated, in other words?
Only that $1 million loan is specified at this time where it's going to go back into the Vehicle Replacement Fund.
And the rest will just go into the general fund or something? Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
I have no questions at this time. I'll open it the public hearing. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this particular item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and we will go to commissioner discussion and determination. Anybody in particular wish to start?
I'll go ahead. I mean, Commissioner Kellenberg already stated that, you know, when the excuse me, when the property was purchased, one of the general intents was to potentially repurpose it for a Fire Station 4. I know that the city has found a much better location. I think it's down at 5th Street, if I'm not mistaken, in South Laguna, that will eventually be the new location for Fire Station 4. So as far as the general plan consistency, I can make that determination based on the three criteria based outlined in the staff report, and I can also make the CEQA findings as well based on that this being an administrative activity only.
Thank you, Commissioner Kellenberg.
Yeah, this whole property acquisition, I think, has been kind of a debatable topic from the very beginning. In my mind, is there a better use that it could be made for by the city? And the only thing that possibly comes to mind would be affordable housing. Having evaluated the site, you know, previously, it really would be, I think, economically unrealistic to expect it to be used for a mixed-use affordable housing project. It's just not large enough and doesn't have enough units and be very expensive, and also there's some grade and parking issues. So I don't see any other sort of public benefits that consistent with the general plan that the property could be used for. So I agree with the city's evaluation and also agree with the findings related to the three evaluation points. So I'm supportive of the item.
I agree with my fellow commissioner comments. It's kind of interesting the way that these situations work. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that the Planning Commission was asked to evaluate the potential purchase of this property. And, you know, as I recall when that was done, there was some discussion about the possibility of it being used for a fire station, but that wasn't even really nailed down at that point and was not really part of our evaluation or discussion. It was whether or not this property had the potential for some public use for the city. But I think the city had in mind mostly the potential for a fire station. We were asked at some point later, I think when the city determined that the site was not going to be particularly suitable for a fire station, there was some discussion about temporarily using the existing parking lot that was there for parking in that area. And there was some community pushback about that, and that site was evaluated, and even using it, the existing parking lot in a somewhat modified configuration was going to be problematic and was not going to work out very well. So, in my mind, I'm asking myself, as the other commissioners were, is even though this has been kind of ruled out as being a suitable site for a replacement for fire station number 4, is there other public potential uses for this site? And, in my mind, I was thinking, parking lot, maybe if the entire structure was removed. But I think because of the previous evaluation and in light of the city council direction, this is what we're being asked to evaluate. And I find, as my fellow commissioners do, that I can find for general plan consistency and agree with the evaluation that it's, exempt, CEQA is not applicable, and that no coastal development permit would be required for this action. So I support this action as well. If somebody would like to make a motion.
I'll take a shot. I'll move that we adopt a resolution making a determination of general plan consistency for the sale of the property located at 31727 and 31735 Coast Highway, and find said action is exempt from CEQA.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Dubin,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg,
Yes.
Chair Sadler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. There's a 30-day right of, or no, 14-day right of appeal to the city council if somebody doesn't agree with that decision. Okay, we will give Commissioner Whiten a minute to rejoin us. We'll be moving on to item 5.2, which is a request for a temporary use permit 24-0972.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. Shweta Sharma, Senior Planner, presenting item 5.2. Give me a moment to share my screen. The item before you tonight is an application from the Coast Film Foundation to hold an event on Forest Avenue Promenade for the screening of film on Thursday, November 12th. It is a one-day event and will accommodate up to 250 attendees. The project is exempt from the provisions of a coastal development permit and any further CEQA analysis. As you can see from the site plan, the applicant has appropriate accommodations and provisions to ensure that the event will not impact any businesses. As part of the analysis, staff did forward the TUP letter of intent and site plan to Public Works, Fire Department, and the Police Department for their comments, and Fire Department conditions of approval are incorporated as part of the resolution in tonight's packet. Staff's recommendation is that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 24-0972, approving the temporary use permit and finding said actions exempt from CEQA. That concludes my presentation. The applicant, Ben Warner, is also here and has a presentation to share with the Planning Commission.
Great, thank you, Shavita. Any questions of staff at this point?
I've got a couple. Well, I think my first one would be better suited for the applicant. I did notice something on page 6 of the resolution, number 13, seems to be in conflict with the Municipal Code 7.25.050A, which states such temporary events are exempt from the provisions of the noise ordinance. And I believe number 13 on the resolution states otherwise. Can you?
If you give me a moment, I can pull up the resolution.
I know it's just a technicality question, but it's one of those ones that
Of course.
clarity is also always appreciated.
Very impressive question.
What was that code section?
Uh,
Have it, I'm sure I can-
7.25.050A. That's the municipal code.
It's a great question, Commissioner. You are correct that the generally applicable noise standards do not apply and that they're not subject to the 50 decibel or 60 decibel thresholds if it's daytime or nighttime activity. However, as a general nuisance, the police department and code enforcement staff could monitor the event and, based on their judgment, could direct the noise or volume to be turned down.
Okay.
We have included similar conditions on prior temporary use permit applications, but you're right, generally that strict adherence to those thresholds do not apply in these types of situations.
Okay, I just, I know it's a kind of a minor thing, but I caught it and I just wanted to get some clarity on it, so thank you. I know.
Any other staff questions? Okay. If the applicant would like to come forward and make a presentation. Whatever's easiest for you. You could either sit at the table and use that microphone, or you can.
Good evening. Thank you for considering our application. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for considering our application this evening. I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of the Coast Film Foundation and the festival that we've been building. My name is Ben Warner.
Thank you.
Co-founder of the Coast Film Festival. I've prepared 4 slides to walk through tonight to help guide the view about the festival. So the festival started in 2019. It's designed as a community gathering. We show documentary films that inspire positive change, ultimately adventure films, surf films, action sports films, and the sort. We started in 2019, and with each year we've grown a little bit carefully as local residents and business owners. We're very aware of supporting and being involved in the community and not growing too quickly or out of touch with the community. So each year we've grown carefully and steadily. Next slide. As you see on this next slide, we have chosen one image for each year. We're the film festival with a town that doesn't have a working theater back in 2019. And so we had to get creative. We started at the Art Affair building with the first year, and we sold out immediately for the first 3 nights with over 800 people showing up. The community showed up with their families. They showed up to watch films and be involved in inspirational and meaningful discussion. The second year, we partnered with the ranch, and we held the festival on the First Fairway as a result of COVID restrictions. And it's a great example of our partnerships with local businesses. In particular, the ranch has been a partner since we started. Year number 3, we moved into the Festival of the Arts. We've created 3 pop-up theaters on the festival grounds. We typically will have about 800 to 1,000 people each day and night at the festival. It's a really cool experience where we bring live music, films, Q&A panels with inspirational speakers, and so on. In 2022, we leaned into our school programs where we bring professional athletes into the schools and working closely with the LBUSD school district. For example, that's Greg Long, a big wave surfer and also an advocate of the oceans. and it's overwhelmingly positive, and we continue to develop our relationships with other community organizations. Last year, we added the Coast Summit, which is a full-day sustainability and impact storytelling summit that brings in leaders from around the world to talk about the future in regards to sustainability and storytelling. The festival has grown each year, and we're excited as we look ahead into this year, our 6th year in November, please. And with this, you'll see that we have incredibly inspirational speakers that ultimately come to Laguna Beach to share their knowledge and experiences, and at the same time create meaningful discussion and touch points with the community. Next slide. As we look ahead into the 6th year and for the future, we are hoping to build a legacy event that lasts forever here in Laguna Beach, that involves the over 85 volunteers that help support our program, that involves community institutions such as Laguna Art Museum, the LBUSD District, Hobie, the Ranch, and et cetera, and many other partners. Adding Forest Avenue Promenade to our experiences will enable us to open up the door to the whole community to watch a film for free on Forest Avenue under the stars. We're very excited and hopeful that you will approve us to plan forward with that. And then we also want to learn from that experience and how we can continue to develop that for years to come. Thank you for your consideration.
Great, thank you so much. Any questions of the applicant?
I've got a couple. So there's roughly 250 folding chairs, I'm assuming, that you're placing on the promenade?
It's about 160 actually
160,
that's
okay.
measured out, and then standing room.
Okay. And then a blow-up screen, right? And those
Yes.
constantly run off of a motor or something, right, that pumps air into it?
Yes, it'll be an inflatable screen that's 14 feet tall, 21 feet wide, and it'll be plugged into a Rivian for electricity.
And a sound system, I'm assuming.
Yes. And there'll be some light music as people enter and get seated, and then we'll show the movie. We'll have a Q&A panel afterwards with approximately 4 speakers.
So as far as delivering and retrieval of the chairs and all the related equipment, will that be at the, I'm assuming there'll be a big rental truck or something at the Forest Avenue end of the promenade?
Yes.
Okay. And that'll
Yes.
happen, to set up will be sometime in the earlier part of the afternoon, and then when it's over at 10 or whenever that ends, you'll retrieve everything and clean the site.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the setup is, we've applied for using the space between 4 and 10 p.m. The event in itself will actually take place from 7 to 9.
Okay.
And so the setup will take place prior to that, and then takedown will take place immediately following.
And just one other question. This was asked through to me from an unnamed council member. Have you given any thought to a temporary ABC liquor license for the evening so people can have a cocktail out there while they're watching movies?
We have, however, we wanted to keep this application very simple so that we can get started this first year without that complexity.
Okay.
And in the future, add that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is this the only evening would you like other evenings? Why did you only apply for one evening?
We see it as an opening evening as a part of the festival for this year. We have shows happening in other venues throughout Laguna Beach that whole week. So one night is easier to lean into and make happen. We could certainly, depending on the results, we could certainly repeat this experience and build off of that in the future.
Okay. And so this, we can get into this in the discussion about the length of TUPs, because they could be longer, correct?
Yes, that is correct, Chair.
Okay, so they could apply for what, a maximum length of time?
The maximum would be a 3-year term.
Okay. Okay, we might want to discuss that.
We would welcome that. That would help us plan and think forward.
Okay.
We also run programs at the Rivian Theater twice a week, as well as at the Festival of the Arts and other venues around town. So we have some experience.
Thank you.
This is just more of a curiosity question. How are you funded? I mean, how do you support this program, the festival?
We started with a credit card. We sell sponsorships, and we accept donations from organizations to help support our work.
But all the events are free.
No, the Rivian events that I mentioned that we do throughout the year are free. Rivian underwrites those. Our events are ticketed, and we charge anywhere from $19 to $500 for an all-event VIP pass.
Will this event at the Promenade be ticketed?
It will not. It'll be free and open to the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where's the main crux? Where is it mostly at the Rivian this year, or is it at the festival grounds, or?
It will start at the Rivian Theater on November 9th. We'll have an opening event there, and it will continue each evening at the Rivian Theater and also at the Laguna Beach Cultural Arts Center each night that week. We'll have a show at the Hobie store on Tuesday evening, and then this event will be on Thursday evening, and then we'll have a 3-day program at the Festival of the Arts Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the end of that time period.
Great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I don't have any additional questions. I'll open it to the public hearing. Are there members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and we will go to commissioner discussion. Anybody want to start?
Yeah, I think it's terrific. The more we can program some uses into the promenade, the better. As you know, the promenade is being studied finally to be redesigned, and this is a good program to introduce and factor into the design. So I'm sure it will be very supported by the city. My second topic is whether we can extend the TUP. Since this application was only for 1 year, if the applicant would like to extend it, can we do that tonight?
Yes, Commissioner Whiten, that would be within your authority.
Okay. All right. Okay. Could you open the public hearing? So I can ask.
Sure. I will reopen the public hearing.
Would the applicant like to extend the TUP to a 3-year period?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Commissioner Dubin.
Yeah, I think this is a great thing for the community. I know that in many past years, I think one of our civic organizations, twice a year, we used to, close the what wasn't the promenade, but we'd close Lower Forest and have music and just have a kind of a open house for the residents of the community to come and enjoy our downtown in a safe environment. And I think this is kind of that only happened twice. Unfortunately, it went away somewhere along the way, but I think this is reminiscent of that, and I know that people loved it, and I think that this is going to be the type of thing that we need to do more of on the promenade, especially once it gets in its final state. So, I think this, I'm in full support of it for one thing, and I just want to say that I can make the coastal development permit findings and also the Class 4 CEQA findings based on this being a minor temporary use. So, thank you.
Commissioner Kellenberg.
Yes, I can also support the findings, and it's kind of hard to not be for this. It's really exciting, and it's a great use of the public space we have. The only thing I would ask staff, Anthony, if you could just do us a favor, could you make sure that the current design team on the promenade is notified of this and suggest that they attend so they can watch use patterns and how this, because I don't know, we've seen multiple designs, but I don't know how many actually have been designed to allow this type of event to occur of scale like this. And I think it'd be a very educational
Absolutely.
opportunity. Okay, thank you.
That's a great
I'm
idea.
completely supportive. And I mean, my only question is, fire, emergency services and police, have they weighed in and evaluated everything, and they have, so that's fine.
I agree with my colleagues. I think it's a great potential use. The promenade is kind of crying out for these types of events. I think it was carefully evaluated. The various city departments reviewed the application. They came up with some, I believe, reasonable conditions of approval of the resolution. There'll be same-day cleanup regarding it. The ability for volume control if there is any complaints or problems about excessive noise. The fire department reviewed it and made minor suggestions about reducing trip and fall hazards by zip tying all the folding chairs together. What else? The fact that they're using their Rivian electrical truck to power it, and thank you, Rivian, for that. All the, again, the part of the fire department evaluation was, keeping the sidewalks unobstructed, making sure that any electrical cords and cables are secured to avoid trip hazards. So I think it's a great use. Now, I understand Commissioner Whiten's request to potentially extend the TUP, and we can discuss that, and I'm open to discussing it. However, I kind of see this more as a trial application, and so I'd be a little bit more inclined to stick with the just 1 year TUP at this point. But if other commissioners have other thoughts about that, it sounds like you're willing to support an extended.
Yeah.
I don't know how the other commissioners feel.
I've attended the film festival for a couple of years, and it's a very well organized and run event. And I don't have any question that it will be properly managed and executed. So I have confidence that they'll behave themselves and
Those guys?
and we'll be happy to see it happen again.
Commissioner Dubin?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I know that I understand your point about being a first time event that let's see how it goes before we grant an extension on the TUP. But I can only say I've been once, but I've been to a lot of the other screenings at the Rivian, and I know the people who run the Coast Film Festival, and again, they do a good job of monitoring things, and nothing has ever gotten out of hand that I know of. So I would be inclined, instead of having them have to come back next year to get potentially a 3-year TUP, I feel fine knowing the organization well enough to know that they do a good job, and I would be okay with granting the extra 2 years tonight if the rest of you agree with that.
Commissioner Kellenberg.
I guess my question is, I mean, the spirit of this suggestion is I'm supportable, but I'm not really sure what it means. I mean, if it's like, okay, 3 years, does that mean they can come down every Thursday night, for 3 years and show movies, or is there some sort of restriction or guardrails on what that really means?
I believe Anthony can answer that, but I think I know.
Yes, thank you, Chair. What staff was thinking of suggesting, if the Planning Commission majority agrees, would that the 3-year term would be to have this single night outdoor moving screening to coincide with the opening night of the annual Coast Film and Music Festival, similar to the current single day request.
I guess the question I would ask is, I mean, I like the idea that it's a TUP for the film festival when it occurs. Is one night all you would ever want to do?
For the next 3 years.
I mean, that's a
one
question
night
for
at the promenade. I mean,
no, that's
like
not. I'm asking them if that's their.
I'll reopen the public hearing if you'd like to respond to that.
At the moment, I think one night per year is the right approach.
During your festival, just
During
one night
the festival.
because you have enough other venues to do what you need to do. Okay.
If there were an opportunity where we were invited to partner with the city or do more frequent events, there, we could certainly consider that. But I think tonight, at this moment, we should focus on the festival itself.
So the 3-year permit it's really for one night a year. Okay, thank you.
And I'll ask one last time, so our principal planner, Vieira, is comfortable with that extension?
Correct. The only addition I would make, if you mind, I do believe we should add subject to the approval by the community development director, only because I don't think we know the dates for the subsequent years. We have no idea what else may be programmed, what is up in the air. So we just want to give the applicant clarity. You obviously have approval from this body, but I wouldn't write it in stone quite yet, just because the city, doesn't know what may or may not be
I think
going
that's a
on.
great suggestion, because the whole design and future of the promenade is in flux at this point, and we don't know exactly how things are going to coordinate in the future. I mean, the whole promenade could be under construction and coincide with what's happening. And, well,
That's optimistic.
I'm being
Exciting.
Let's hope it is.
Anyway, okay, so it sounds like I'm willing to be swayed by the majority of the commission here, so I will support that as well. If somebody would like to make a motion, mention the extension of time with the caveat.
So I move adoption of the resolution approving temporary use permit 24-0972 and finding said action exempt from CEQA, and adding the verbiage that allows for an extension of the temporary use permit for 2 more nights in the subsequent years, corresponding with the opening of the Coast Film Festival, under the understanding that there may be a hiccup in there somewhere.
Discretion of the community director of community development.
Thank you.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Whiten,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg,
Yes.
Chair Sadler.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Good luck.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll give everybody a minute here to set up. And we'll be moving on to item 5.3, which is conditional use permit 24-1322 at 935 Laguna Canyon Road, the Sawdust Festival. Staff, whenever you're ready.
Chair, can I make a quick comment before staff
Sure.
starts?
And are there any disclosures? Okay, yes, please go ahead.
This is, I noticed, at least in my staff report, that the resolution, the application, and the site plans were all out of sync with the actual information. Like when I opened the resolution, it was the application, and when I opened the plans, it was the resolution, and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to note that, so that, in the future, we're paying attention to those things. It wasn't hard to get figured out, but it was just out of sync. That's it.
Thank you, Chair. And before I turn it over to Claire Park for the staff presentation, I did want to introduce her to the Commission. This is her first evening before the Planning Commission, her first Planning Commission presentation. Claire has now been with us for just over 9 months. She's been a really great addition to the Planning Division, and we're very happy to be bringing her before you this evening to present item 5.3.
Welcome, Claire.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Sounds like you've been here for a while, but welcome to your first Planning Commission meeting.
Good evening. Item 5.3 is a request for a conditional use permit amendment for a Sawdust Art Festival at 935 Laguna Canyon Road. The proposed project is located within the Arts District in the downtown Specific Plan area and is home to the Sawdust Art Festival. The Sawdust Art Festival was originally just an annual summer art festival. Today, the festival provides a year-long programming to include the Summer Sawdust Art Festival, Winter Fantasy, and other special events. These uses are currently regulated through a conditional use permit, which was last amended by the Planning Commission in 2023. This picture shows the existing project street frontage. The facade that you see here is a permanent structure not affected by this application. This application is limited to just temporary structures such as artist booths, which are inside the festival grounds. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit amendment to modify the current condition number 28 to allow temporary structures like artist booths to remain standing for longer periods. As currently conditioned, the recent 2023 CUP requires the temporary structures to be removed annually. To reduce the festival's environmental footprint and overhead expenses for artist exhibitors, the applicant is requesting an amendment to increase the duration of these temporary structures from 1 to 2 years. According to the applicant, artists will be directed to meet certain standards of construction to ensure the longevity of the temporary structures, such as vapor barriers and other anti-mold treatments. Top figures show temporary artist booths under construction, and the bottom figure shows the booths decorated for Winter Fantasy. As discussed in the staff report, all required findings can be made to grant the request. The proposed amendment will not affect the ongoing operations at the Sawdust Ground and will not have adverse impact on surrounding circulation. The conditions of approval from the conditional use permit approved in 2023 will mostly remain, with new safety requirements added by the building division for the temporary structure's 2-year lifespan, which is part of the resolution as in attachment 1. Staff recommendation is to approve conditional use permits subject to the discussion provided in the staff report and the findings in the attached resolution. This concludes my presentation, and I'm now open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Before we start with questions, I forgot to ask about disclosures. Are there any disclosures? No. I spoke with a friend who's an exhibitor there. I'm not sure if I really even need to disclose that, but I will. Just as general background questions. Any questions of staff at this point?
I have one for staff. Was there any issue with the fire department in terms of additional fire risk and leaving the booze up for standing for 2 years?
This wasn't routed to the fire department, but it was routed to building division for their review, and building division will be conducting site visits right before it's constructed, and they're requested to have a meeting with the building official before it is constructed as well.
So are they requesting that the booths that are currently there remain for another year? Because I know there's from the building department there's some water and mold mitigation measures that may not be in place with the current structures, the current booths that are there. So are they going to be torn down and rebuilt and then left for 2 years, or are they saying they can mitigate the existing booths that are there currently?
I think that's a better question for the applicant, as I think some of the booths might stay and some of them might not.
Okay. I will save that question for the applicant then. Thank you.
Questions? I guess I'll ask a couple questions. They're talking about these some potential new mitigation measures. One was the fire department question. I had that question as well. Is by leaving up these temporary structures, does it make it any more vulnerable to fires? Also, there was some mention about this whole property is within the floodplain, and they had some verbiage in the resolution about mitigating the flood damage, but it seemed more in line with the kind of typical language about downtown businesses, and it just talked about putting up flood control gates or stuff like that, which doesn't really apply to this open site. So I'm wondering, I guess, a couple of questions. One is, does this site have any history of ever been negatively impacted by floods? Two, is the city and staff comfortable with the potential floods, and is there any possibility by leaving these structures up during the rainy season that could create any kind of hazard?
Thanks for that question, Chair. The floodgates would most likely be installed along the street facade, the permanent facade that fronts the grounds on which the temporary structures are installed. So staff's expectation wouldn't be that there would be additional flood security measures installed within the grounds themselves, for the reason that by providing that protection along Laguna Canyon Frontage Road that immediately abuts the Laguna Canyon Creek flood control channel, those floodwaters would be appropriately diverted before impacting the temporary structures on the grounds. Now, with respect to the history of flooding, staff doesn't have that information tonight.
I have that information for you.
Okay.
I was the grounds manager there for 2 years in the early 80s, and I dug a lot of trenches during the rainy season to channel the water from the hillside out to the street. So having structures there year-round, they may have to do some temporary channeling of the grounds to allow the water coming off the hillsides to be moved out to the front where they could be dissipated into the channels.
Okay. And I know from the history of the site and the difference between the Sawdust Festival and the Winter Festival that, and from year to year, these booths get moved around and they're not always exactly in the same spot and stuff like that. But I just want to make clear, be sure I'm clear that when they're talking about these more permanent structures, in no cases are they going to be pouring concrete slabs or anything permanent for these temporary structures.
Yes, that is correct, Chair.
Okay. That answers my questions for the moment. So I guess we will go to the applicant. If you could give us your name and.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Tom Hartman. I'm the general manager for the Sawdust Festival. And with us today are our board officers, our president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. So thank you very much, Commission, for your time and service to the city. Claire, thank you for all the work leading up to this. As kind of mentioned, this change in the CUP really affects kind of the internal operations of the festival and the booths. The membership had been kind of working on this concept for many years, and it really just kind of accelerated 2 years ago with the repairs to the flood control channel when we had to get a temporary modification to the CUP to allow the booth to stay up for 2 years. So having gone through that experience, the membership, it was kind of if there were any doubts, most of them were alleviated because of the benefits of allowing these temporary structures to remain up for two summers or 2 years. Being kind of twofold. One, the environmental impact. The square footage of, there's roughly 180 temporary structures built onto the grounds. My rough calculations is that's about 20,000 square feet of building that every year gets torn down. Most of the artists can't store the woods or building materials, so a lot of that gets literally thrown away. And so in our effort to be as environmentally conscious as possible, it pains a lot of people to see those dumpsters after dumpster after dumpster of these materials get thrown away when we can build the structures to withstand that 2-year cycle. And that was a learning curve 2 years ago or a year ago, was some of the mold and we say water damage. It's not flood damage, it's just from the rain getting between the walls, and just there wasn't the preparation ahead of time. This last time that happened, but now we built the current booths in anticipation that this would hopefully pass. So all the posts that gone into the ground, have red guard or some other mold mitigation to keep up their strength and structure, vapor barriers to help with the mold and the drywall. That doesn't mean some of these things may not happen, and artists or exhibitors may need to come in and patch drywall, remove some stuff, and just deal with some of the environmental effects. But the overall savings will be significant, and that's the second part of this. It is extremely difficult for a lot of our members and artists to live in Laguna Beach, but there's the deep-rooted passion of the Sawdust Festival to maintain this city as an arts colony and to do what it takes to ensure that they can survive and thrive in this city. And this measure will literally every year save them thousands of dollars of construction costs. There are artists that can't build them themselves anymore, so they have to hire builders. The construction materials are just not the cost they used to be years ago. So, those structures can be anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 that they have to build and throw away every year. So this goes a long way in helping them continue to live in Laguna Beach and provide that cultural capital for this community. So, are there any questions?
Yeah, so I want to make sure I understand this. So right now, there's temporary structures that were built for the Sawdust Festival.
Mm-hmm.
That some of them are going to remain for the Winter Festival. And your plan and intent right now is that if this passes, is that this goes into effect right now, and then you would like to keep some of those temporary structures for a 2-year cycle.
Correct. So most of those structures that are still remaining, we've already torn down the certain sections to prepare for the Winter Fantasy, would stay up for the summer of 25 and the winter of 25, and then they'd be torn down in 26. Because that is part of the Sawdust culture, is the change and allowing new artists to come in different locations and keeping the show fresh. So, I mean, this is a big change for us, but yeah, so we've already kind of anticipated and are in that cycle, so to speak, if it were to pass.
Okay, this is slightly off topic, and maybe I don't want to get too far off field here, but you mentioned that that it's how difficult it is to have local artists, and that this would help in terms of their keeping their expenses down, which is certainly true. But has there been any thought? I mean, are you so struggling to find local artists that they're starting to consider possibly lessening, opening up the requirements to having artists from? Because I believe that aren't the kind of rules right now that you have to be a resident of Laguna Beach, and is that becoming more and more difficult? And do you have to start thinking about possibly opening up the application to artists who live in surrounding communities?
For the main festival, the summer festival, some of those conditions do apply. Artists need to establish residency in the city of Laguna Beach for at least 1 year. And for the first, it used to be you had to be living in Laguna for 10 years before you could kind of be grandfathered in to the show, and then if you moved away, still be a part of the show. That was changed a year ago because of some of these issues. We've had artists that financially couldn't last that long and had to move away to surrounding cities, and that requirement was moved down to 7 years. Just that is an ongoing topic of, we have a committee working with the board, kind of the next generation, is how do we survive the next 60 years?
Okay, again, that was more, that's your guys' issue and more of a discussion for your internally, but one more of curiosity from myself. But
no, I appreciate it. And if I may add, the Sawdust Festival has permanent structures. What we're talking about, the artist booths are temporary. So even though they are up for 2 years, they are built to proper building codes for temporary use. And a lot of that governs, how the structures, clearances, joining the frames together, roofing, and even but probably most affects the question about the fire department is all the electrical is still temporary use, so it's exposed electrical, outdoor rated, et cetera. So none of that changes. We're just adding some stuff based off what we saw.
That electrical equipment gets removed, right? It does not. Does it remain with these temporary structures?
It can, because it's all outdoor rated. A lot of the artists do remove their lighting between shows, along with their artwork and other things.
I thought I had read something in the resolution that it talked about it actually being removed, but I'll double check that.
Just to follow up on Commissioner Sadler's questions about the timing. So you mentioned that the Winter Fantasy, some buildings remain, for the Winter Fantasy. Some have already been torn down. So is the construction schedule a staggered 2-year schedule?
No, the Winter Fantasy, that schedule, we have we call it a tear down zone. About 20 or 25 booths get torn down to make room for our town square for the Winter Fantasy. That schedule will remain. So there is another build cycle starting in May of 25 for the next summer season. So those booths we have a lottery process, and those that are selected will build in that teardown zone for the summer show. That'll always be a 1-year cycle.
I see.
Most likely. The other thing too is the way that the amendment is written is to allow a 1 or 2 year cycle. There could be a chance where our membership decides that was a good experiment, but we'd like to move back to the 1-year cycle, and for whatever reasons. So there's that flexibility.
So I want to ask about like the current structures that are there. Have they been already built with the mold and water mitigation in them currently?
Correct.
Okay, so that's already been done, but yeah, I understand the reason. I was in the sawdust for 10 years, a long time ago. I was the president and grounds manager, so I understand. One of the things that was always a big deal is that the sawdust changed every year. When it became, when people came to experience it, it was something different. It looked different. The booths were moved around, and so leaving it in place for 2 years, obviously, when people come to experience it on the second year, it's going to basically look like it did the year before. And I know that the sawdust artists are aging out a little bit because it's become less and less affordable to remain in Laguna. So I'm sympathetic to the financial strains on the artists that are able to remain, but I'm kind of struggling with this, because I'm an old school sawdust guy, that the sawdust changes every year. That was sort of the mantra even back when we built the front facade brand new. Every year it was different, so when some of the structures started to become permanent, that was sort of a big shift in the original intent. So I'm just wondering if the water and mold mitigation, did that, I don't know what that costs, but did it kind of cancel out the savings to the it did not?
No, a lot of those measures maybe added a few $100s at most.
Okay.
We know people shared some, if you bought a half gallon of Red Guard for your 4 main posts on the ground, you had leftovers and people would share, and the builders that were building multiple booths would just kind of consolidate some of those materials. But your concern, that certainly was a discussion amongst the membership of how that would maybe change the culture of the sawdust, and that's why we wanted to leave that flexibility to revert back to a 1-year cycle. Mm-hmm. Is if after a couple of these, if we determine, the feedback from the public is, they feel like it's maybe stagnating, maybe we want to change it up. But there's also an element that was discussed of, because of the cost savings, we would encourage the artists to, maybe change their facades, their roof lines, the paint, just kind of change it up enough that when the public comes back, it does look a little different. And certainly the entrance will be different since there's 20 to 25 new booths being built. So there will be some variation. And then it allows us a little bit more planning time to maybe do something a little different enough.
Come on, it's supposed to be wild.
Every 2 years, because we've got trenched electrical, plumbing, that if we wanted to make some major changes, just costs a little bit more. But again, then we can do something quite a bit different.
Okay, thank you.
I have 2 questions. One is kind of for the staff, and that is the approval of this that there can be this 2-year cycle ongoingly, or is this a one-time 2-year cycle? that's being approved here?
Going.
So this is ongoing. Okay, thank you. I didn't realize that. Then you mentioned that you also, that when the storm drain was being constructed, you got an extension during that time period. So are some of the buildings that are being extended for another year part of the extension you already had, so that they're actually 3-year-old buildings, or?
No, all those were torn down in January of this year, and a new cycle of booths were built in May and June of this year.
Okay, that's it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll open the public hearing. Are there members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Everybody's here for something else. Okay. I will close the public hearing and go to public. I'll start with this one. I mean, as I started by saying, I spoke with a friend who's an exhibitor there, and I spoke with him earlier this year when he was building his booth, and it's quite an ordeal and quite an expense for these exhibitors and artists to do it, either themselves or hire somebody to do it. And so it's they're struggling artists. So whatever we can do to help them reduce the financial burden somewhat is, I'm sure, appreciated, and I think it makes sense. And it makes sense from an environmental standpoint, like was said, that some people are able to have a place to store some of their building materials, others are not. And so, and generally speaking, the drywall is not easy to keep or save. So a lot of that, if it's used, ends up getting tossed out. So for that reason as well, I'm supportive of it. And hopefully the festival is following the current, California Green Building Standards and trying the best they can to deal with any kind of discarded materials appropriately. But beyond my a couple concerns about some safety issues, which seem like they've been addressed, I'm willing to support this. And just as an aside, I did notice in the conditions of approval, condition 37 is a project-specific condition of approval from the building department saying that all electrical components from the temporary structures are to be removed at the conclusion of the season. But that's for the building department to follow up on. So.
Yeah, I agree with my fellow Commissioner Sadler. I think the artists are the very core of the event, obviously, and we need to keep them solvent and give them a livelihood. And as the applicant stated, if the Sawdust members feel that this is somehow diminishing the culture of the Sawdust by having a 2-year extension, then they can resolve that. I think they're at the heart of the issue. It's their soul essentially, and it's their flame, and they want to protect it. So I don't see a downside to this. And what I'm saying is, if there is a downside, I think it will self-correct on the part of the members of the Sawdust. So I support the findings. I think the reviews have all by the building officials are adequate, and I support the project.
Commissioner Dubin?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that as well as anybody, being an artist myself and having been in the town for almost 5 decades and spending 10 years at the Sawdust and being involved in the board and all that stuff. It's, I can look in the rearview mirror and recognize when we all would go out and scavenge wood and old barn wood and all kinds of stuff to build booths out of, and, rusted corrugated metal for roofs and all that stuff. And it was pretty unique. I mean, it was always the mantra of the Sawdust to change every year, but that was then, and I know building costs have gone way up, and certainly materials, have gone through the roof. I mean, you can't buy a 2x4 for less than $10 these days. So, I'm very sympathetic to that. I wish it could be different, but times have changed, and you know, I know a lot of the artists that are in the Sawdust. Some of the old timers, anyways, are still good friends of mine. So I get the struggle. I know the cost of living in Laguna has certainly gone through the roof as well, and a lot of people are holding on by their teeth to stay in town and be able to participate in the Sawdust Festival. So although I have kind of mixed feelings about that, I would certainly support this because of the economics of it.
Thank you. Commissioner Kellenberg.
Yeah, I guess I'm only wonder is, you know, why didn't you do this earlier? I mean, anything we can do to support the local artists. I think we all know artists who have used the Sawdust Festival as a stepping stone. You know, they wouldn't be able to get into the competition across the street, perhaps. They could get in the Sawdust and develop their skills and their artistic ability and then often kind of move on, you know, to a real career that was quite exciting. I've seen it with my own eyes, you know, with some of the local artists, and so I think the Sawdust Festival plays an important part in our art culture, not just by being an art festival, but by being a part of the progression of artistic advancement of our art community. And everybody's like stymied by this cost. You know, let's go across the street for dinner and talk about the bill, you know, when we get done. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. I can't help but be supportive of it.
Okay. Would somebody like to make a resolution or a motion?
Move approval of conditional use permit 24-1322.
Second.
Okay, yes, excuse me, and finding said action exempt from CEQA.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Whiten?
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg?
Yes.
Chair Sadler?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Too much noise. Do you want a piece of this? No.
Okay, we'll be moving on to our next scheduled agenda item, which is item 5.4, design review 24-1391 and variance 24-1392 at 343 3rd Street. Garrett will be presenting this item for us.
Thank you. Good evening, Planning Commission and members of the public. Item 5.4 is a request for design review and a variance at 343 3rd Street, located in the CBD office district of the Downtown Specific Plan. The site is currently developed with a 3-story, 5-unit office building containing approximately 3,200 square feet of office on the 2 upper floors. The proposed project includes a variance request for additions exceeding 12 feet in height and 1 floor. The additions include a 45 square foot addition on the 2nd floor to create an internal hallway access between 2 commercial spaces. A 13 square foot addition on the 3rd floor is proposed to widen a narrow 3-foot hallway by 1 foot 6 inches. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving design review 24-1391 and variance 24-1392 and finding said action exempt from CEQA. That will conclude my staff summary, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Garrett. Any questions of staff? Commissioner Dubin.
The variances for those 2 additions, that in no way affects the parking requirement.
That's correct.
Okay, that's my only question. Thank you.
Whiten.
Yes, and the original approval had conditions placed on it. And going out to the side, I could see that part of the firewall on the north side has been cut back, but not all of it. The section between the second and third floor is still as it was originally. Do you know anything about that, Garrett, why that piece was not cut?
I do not. That may be a good question for the applicant.
Yeah. And then among those conditions were a change in color, a number of colors. Have you reviewed those colors? Has the applicant resubmitted those colors? What do we know about it?
I have not reviewed those colors. To my knowledge, those are not changing.
Not change. The conditions of approval required a change.
Yes, that is correct, Commissioner, and we will ensure that the finishes are consistent with that condition of approval. We do have different planning staff that work on the building plan check process. They are very good about enforcing those conditions of approval, but unfortunately we were not involved with that process, and so we can't report to you on that this evening, but the applicant can certainly provide an update.
It's just an item that could get lost in the shuffle. Thank you.
Commissioner Kellenberg, any questions?
No questions this time.
Okay. If the applicant would like to come forward. Whatever you're more comfortable, either the podium or you can sit down. Okay. Is the light on? Push the button and then once the light's on.
There we go.
There you go.
Good evening. It's good to be back.
You could just give us your name again for the record.
Sure. James Barnes, I'm the architect and engineer of the project. Which question do you want me to address first? The wall?
In any order, yes.
The wall, we basically, there's a fire requirements between this property and adjacent property. And the proposed cutting of the wall I had to look in to see where the location of all the rebars are. So when we cut, we don't jeopardize the structural integrity of the building. So we actually scanned where the rebars were and we cut. And we were fortunate to be able to cut a portion of the wall that's actually is flush with the adjacent neighbor's wall. And above that, there's also fire issues that we kind of try to avoid doing that.
Because I don't remember there being a building on the other side of that firewall.
There's a building.
Oh, there is?
There's a building, yes.
Okay.
It's set back, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
It's set back, but we actually, we created that cut, so actually, we actually are in line in the same plane as the adjacent wall of the property next door to kind of visually be more consistent to a pedestrian view, so it's basically flush.
Yeah, it's kind of too bad because it looks really great from the ground level up to the second floor.
Right.
It really opens up the view of the building.
Right.
But then it's lost up at the upper floor. Anyway, the color, how about the colors?
Colors, we had a meeting with the staff. We met at the job site and I brought samples and they approved it. And they actually have, Ms. Cosimo has the approved plan, the samples and colors.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to dovetail in on that because that was my big question too, because I remember we had a pretty extensive conversation when we approved the project, whenever that was. It's been a year or so, or maybe longer. And we talked about the building color itself, the railing color, and the roof color. And in my review of the staff report, it didn't seem like any of that changed at all. When I saw the white and the gray and the roof color, it just seemed like we were back at a black and white building again, and I was, intending to ask you if it just doesn't seem like anything changed from what we were requesting, at least some options, So, what do you think? What do you say?
Well, we met with the staff, and I gave them samples of both the roof material and the revised stucco color. They have the samples.
Are they here tonight?
I'm afraid not. The staff should have it.
We don't have the samples, Commissioner, but Associate Planner Kate Kazama, who the architect and applicant just referenced, is in the room, as it so happens. So if we do need staff confirmation that those samples were reviewed, we can certainly provide that to you and provide a general description.
Yeah, just because in the staff report, there is some color samples, or there's a page that references the railing and the stucco on the roof, and it seemed like it's looked exactly the same to me as what we were sort of trying to deviate from.
Those could be the original
I
renderings.
think those are the original renderings.
Oh,
That is,
so we haven't seen.
we haven't seen them.
Oh.
It was left to staff to
Right. I
approve
mean,
the
that's the other
colors.
thing, is that we,
We can't.
what our final decision was that we deferred to staff to follow up on it. So
Okay.
it's kind of awkward for us to step in.
Okay,
again.
all right. That's all.
But maybe Kate can.
Yeah, Kate, if you could just give us a
And
quick background
enlighten
on
us.
the current status of the review of the building colors and materials?
I can confirm that the colors there's a warmer color. I think there were colors that were presented at the hearing. I don't know if you recall, but it's those same color samples that we found were a warmer version than what was presented at that hearing.
Okay,
So it is a different color. It's a warmer
is.
version of the white, for example.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
And what about the railings?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I believe there were 2 color changes, though. I'd have to refer back to my notes.
Okay, and anything else you'd like to add? I guess a couple general questions. I noticed, I mean, the extent of these changes is relatively minor. There was an area that I believe was, external deck that is now being made an internal connection between 2 offices, correct?
That's correct.
And then there was another area where one of the walkways is just being widened slightly to make it more functional, correct?
That's correct. That's
And
the-
so,
that's like-
although the building exceeds the current allowable standards because it's over 12 feet high and over 1 story, any modification basically at this point then requires a design review change, and triggers this variance request.
That's correct. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'll open it, open it to the public. If any members of the public would like to speak on this item, I see none. I'll close the public hearing and go to Commissioner Kellenberg. Would you like to start?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
Commissioner White.
I support the variance. I can make the findings and so forth, but I'd actually like to talk about this specific situation, which, and why we have to even go through this process, that we should create a policy that makes it, that doesn't require the applicant to come back. And namely, the circumstances would be, this is exempt from CEQA because it's less than it's a 2% or less minor addition. It's actually 1.8%. It's not visible from the right-of-way or surrounding properties. And it is an existing building which predates the DSP 12-foot high requirement. So I think it's really a waste of time to bring this applicant here when the condition under which the existing condition of the building predates the DSP. It meets the exemption for CEQA, and it's an invisible change. It's a purely functional, and it's a good improvement to the internal function of the circulation of the building. So we can't make that determination, but I think it's something to put on somebody's list about,
Just to add,
how to work.
But the hard part about it is that it's the variance request. It's the fact that it just by the nature of the existing building and by the nature of the current rules, any modification like this is going to trigger a variance request. I thought about the same thing, and looking back at the previous application, because there was no additions at that point, there was no variance request, and we did not grant a variance previously. If we had previously granted a variance for a height variance, I would tend to agree with you, but because we never did, I think, I mean, it would require, and we can ask staff and Anthony, I mean, to try to change the rules so that somehow this would not trigger a variance would be a pretty substantial change to our
I think it
current
would
policy,
be,
wouldn't it?
It would be so narrowly defined. You know, would there even be another building where this would apply? I don't know. But, you know, the fact of the matter is it's a 3-story building, which doesn't meet, you know, which would never be built and would certainly need a variance, but it's an existing building.
Right.
That's it. And so therefore, I think, I'm not the attorney, but it seems as though language could be crafted to deal with that situation. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, Commissioner, and that point is very well taken. There will be a Phase 2 update to the downtown specific plan, and a big component of that update will be to look at downtown building height limits. Sounds like what you're describing is like a minor variance exception. It's maybe more streamlined. Those are the types of things that could be discussed as part of that application, that process to amend the downtown specific plan.
Only if it's exempt from CEQA. Only if it's a minor. Yeah.
Point taken. All right. Well, I'm forgotten, now I've lost where we're at. Who? Did you make your comments? Are you done?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I support this.
Commissioner Dubin.
Yeah, I mean, I see no reason to not grant the variance. It seems pretty minor. It's something that is not seen from the street. There's no view issue that's with any of the neighbors. You know, my concern, as I stated before, which was about the color of the building, which we talked about a year plus ago, but it sounds like staff has already seen that and made their determination. So, and I can just say that I can make the Class 1 CEQA exemption. So I'm going to approve the project.
Commissioner Kellenberg.
Yeah, one of the reasons I declined to go first was I wanted to hear what everybody else said, because in my mind this was so innocuous and so minor. It's like I must have misunderstood, you know, what this is about. How long have you been in the process for this? I'm just curious.
I used to have black hair. It's about a year or so, maybe.
Yeah,
I mean, more than that, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, it's anyway. So yeah, no, I'm in support of it because it just seemed like it's almost a non-event. Yeah.
No, I get it too. You know, and again, it requires a height variance, but it's not increasing the existing height of the building at all. It's adding some floor area. You know, it's not adding any additional, even nothing that actually increases the height anywhere. Really, it's just infilling floor areas for the most part, for everything actually. So I understand the idea. I just one of those ones where I'm just like, I'm not sure how that. And I understand what Anthony's saying. He's basically saying if we change the downtown height rules, well, then this wouldn't require variance, right? Or something is crafted about an exemption for existing buildings or something like that. But anyhow, I am supportive as well of this. It's been interesting. I drive by this pretty much every morning, and I've noticed a couple of you walking around the project in the morning, looking at it. It's really interesting to see that building when it's gotten opened up to its structure the way it has, and just open up the building. It's a more impressive building the way it is right now, with it being all opened up that way. I don't know if it was the building colors before or whatever, but you know, I think in the other meeting I said, you know, it's a convoluted building. It was more about the circulation, and the staff report pointed out. I mean, this building, because of the way its layout and everything has an unusual proportion of outdoor deck space compared to interior space, and it's an unusual building. And I just think the opportunity and hopefully this final finishes and the colors are really thought about carefully, because I think the way it was before, with it all being so dark, it just really kind of hid a lot of the niceness of the architecture. So again, I'm supportive of it, and if somebody would like to make a motion. Or I could try.
Susan, are you going to do, or Ken? Yeah, Ken, I think you should
Wait
jump
if I
in.
can get to the end here. I'll move that we approve design review 24-1391 and variance 24-1392 and finding said action exempt from CEQA.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Whiten?
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg?
Yes.
Chair Sadler?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck with the completion
Thank
of the
you very much.
building.
Thank you.
We're going to take a short 5-minute break before our next and final item. Okay, good evening. We'll call the meeting back to order and move on to our item 5.5, which is design review 24-1636, conditional use permit 24-16, oh my God, my eyes are going. 1638, and sign permit 24-1639 at 276 South Coast Highway.
I did meet with the applicant's architect.
Okay.
As did I.
I did visit a Buzz Coffee.
Oh, and I spoke with the architect team on the phone today. So, Kate, if you'd like to start with the staff report.
Good evening, Chair Sadler and members of the Planning Commission. I'm Kate Kazamo, Associate Planner, and item 5.5 is a design review, conditional use permit, and sign permit request for building facade improvements to establish a formula-based cafe business and for new signage at 276 South Coast Highway, also known as 280 South Coast Highway. Oops. Apologize for this overlapped image, but the subject property is located on the inland side of South Coast Highway between Forest Avenue and Ocean Avenue. The highway fronting site is developed with 2 attached buildings containing 3 tenant spaces and a parking area at the rear of the property accessible from the alley. The applicant is proposing to occupy the 280 South Coast Highway tenant space that was most recently occupied by BJ's Restaurant. The project site is located within the CBD Visitor Commercial District of the Downtown Specific Plan, and the applicant is proposing to establish a formula-based eating and drinking establishment known as Better Buzz Coffee at the site. Eating and drinking establishments are typically permitted by right within the CBD Visitor Commercial District. However, formula-based businesses within the downtown requires approval of a CUP. Better Buzz Coffee currently operates 24 other locations throughout Southern California and Arizona. Therefore, approval of a CUP is required as part of this request. The proposed hours of operations are 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily, and no intensification of use is being proposed as it relates to parking. The findings for a formula-based business are as indicated on the slide before you. Finding 1 indicates the business will enhance and contribute to the destination quality of the downtown Specific Plan area. And finding number 2 states both exterior and interior appearance of the business and presentation of merchandise are non-formulaic and compatible with the existing scale of development, distinctive architecture and pedestrian orientation of the established village character. Overall, staff believes the proposed business contributes to the downtown by introducing a new resident and visitor cafe. The project would revitalize an existing commercial space, especially by reintroducing the outdoor dining space to improve the site's pedestrian orientation. Additionally, as shown in the exhibits before you, the other Better Buzz locations often feature an industrial style with the use of reclaimed wood, black metal, and a black, white, and yellow color scheme. In contrast, the proposed project features a more contemporary and coastal-inspired design with a softer palette that incorporates white stucco, warm wood siding and soffits, blue and green tiling, and bronze standing seam metal at the exterior. The interior ties in the exterior building design with the use of similar or complementary colors and materials. Therefore, staff believes the findings can be made for finding number 2. The slide before you depicts the existing and proposed street elevation and the proposed materials and colors. The applicant is requesting design review to modernize the facade of the building. As shown in the exhibits before you, the existing storefront features faux dormer windows, which create the illusion of a second floor, wood shake roofing, and wood paneling. The current enclosed building area extends up to the property line with the awning hanging over the right-of-way. The proposed design features a lighter contemporary design which removes the faux dormers, reduces the height of the tower element on the right side of the frontage, and recesses the tower, the lower half of the street-facing wall to create the covered outdoor dining space. Overall, staff finds the proposed modifications reduce the perceived mass of the building, enliven the existing storefront, and improves the pedestrian scale of the area. Planning Commission approval is required for signs with letter heights that exceed 8 inches. The applicant is requesting approval to install one wall sign on the south elevation fronting South Coast Highway and one blade sign that will have an east-west orientation along the same frontage. The downtown specific plan provides that wall signs for individual businesses shall be limited to a maximum of 15 square feet, except where it can find that such limited sign size is inconsistent with building size, architecture, and setbacks from the right-of-way. The proposed wall signage is 21.87 square feet in sign area and would be located directly next to the street and sidewalk on a single-story building. In staff's opinion, there are no extraordinary circumstances that provide justification for a wall sign exceeding the normally permitted 15 square feet. Therefore, condition number 28 has been included in the draft resolution to restrict the wall signage to a maximum area of 15 square feet. Additionally, as proposed, the wall sign would consist of flat-cut acrylic letters. To enhance the quality of the sign, condition number 29 would require the use of pin-mounted metal lettering. Overall, staff finds the proposed project is consistent with the downtown specific plan, the municipal code design criteria, and the city's CUP findings. Therefore, tonight, staff is recommending approval of design review 24-1636, conditional use permit 24-1638, and sign permit 24-1639, subject to the conditions in the attached resolution and a categorical exemption pursuant to CEQA. This concludes my presentation. Both staff and the applicant team are available to address any questions.
Thank you, Kate. Any questions, Commissioner Kellenberg?
Not at this time.
Commissioner Whiten?
Yes, I have a number of questions. First, the parking currently is 6 spaces. There's no intensification, so 6 spaces are required.
The 6 existing spaces should remain, yes.
Out there, there's sort of some very faint lines out there right now. And there are also 2 spaces in that lot designated with signs for toes on the nose. So is tandem parking permitted, a permitted, is it permitted? There's no, and does this project have to delineate the parking spaces?
Thanks for that question, Commissioner. The city, to our knowledge, hasn't approved tandem parking for this location. Now, we did look through city's property file records for this site address. The evolution of that rear area that provides this 6-car surface parking lot is somewhat incomplete. There isn't good plan information. There are descriptions of the 6 existing parking spaces on site. I believe Kate was able to find one site plan that showed those 6 spaces plus a 7th, which probably wasn't usable and was quite deficient, hence why we were left with 6 spaces. And on that layout, you have a central access aisle, and then you have 2 parking spaces oriented parallel to the alley on the facing the building, facing the ocean, and then on the opposite side, closer towards City Hall, you had 4 spaces also parallel to the alley, or what I would call 90-degree spaces. And that seems to be pretty consistent with the faded striping on the site.
But what about the spaces for the toes on the nose?
So from the city's point of view, we are looking at the total parking requirement for a site. So what we are doing when we're doing a parking analysis, let's say there was an intensification of use that required that parking requirements be addressed, and there might be some change to the site conditions as a result. We would identify the individual parking requirements for each tenant space, which those parking ratios could vary from use to use. And there might be a fractional requirement for some or all of those uses. And then we would total and round up to the nearest whole number. The city doesn't get involved with what I would call landlord-tenant lease negotiations about who was allocated what spaces.
Yeah, no, I understand. I misunderstood. I thought the 6 spaces were allocated to this application. 4 are allocated to this application, right?
Based
Okay.
off of city record.
All right.
that's how it
Okay, my
appears.
next question has to do with the trash. Is this, Commissioner Dubin and I worked with Public Works on the trash enclosure on the adjacent public parking lot. And the idea there was, and the reason it was built, was to remove all of the trash containers from the alley. And indeed, if you go out there, there are no trash containers on the alley. It's a huge improvement. So the other day, a few days ago, there were dumpsters in this parking lot. There aren't dumpsters there today, so I don't know why. But, and I asked staff to talk to Public Works about whether this project can utilize the trash enclosure.
Yes, so we did confirm with Public Works that this property is able to use it, but that still has to be coordinated through their staff and with the trash hauler. But it does appear that this property is eligible to use it, and staff would recommend that they utilize that shared trash collection space and open up these parking spaces.
Okay, great.
And if I might add to Kate's response, what was communicated to us was that that would be required, and therefore staff has prepared a draft condition of approval for the Commission's consideration this evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, regarding regarding the signage, did staff discuss other locations for the signage with the applicant? Other locations than at the top of the building, such as blade signs that are at pedestrian level?
We did see multiple versions of signage, and that was the recommendation made by staff to lower that blade signage to that awning level.
Okay. So the applicant has already had this discussion, and this is what they've decided to submit. Yes. Okay. And then the size, the font size, the letter size, how does that font size compare to other signage in this strip here, say from Nick's to Rivian?
Okay, so I did do a small survey of it's only 5 businesses, and their signage where they have both wall signage and blade signage. I can pull that slide up, and you can take a look at the general sign areas, the sign height, and the letter heights for each signage, and compare that to Better Buzz, which is located at the top of this table. In general, there is a variety of sign size and heights. You will find that there's some that are equal or larger in size, or some that are smaller than the proposed signage.
That's very helpful. Okay, I didn't see in the staff report, there are a lot of materials, tiles and so forth, but I didn't see materials for the interior finished furniture.
They do
Did
have
I miss that?
interior materials. I can pull that up for you. This is the interior material palette.
Okay, but the actual furniture, the tables, the chairs, and are they movable or are they fixed? We can ask the applicant.
Yeah, I'll
That's
defer to the
okay.
applicant on that.
All right.
You're gonna have to settle down over there. Quit raising your hand like that.
Yeah. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you.
Yeah, Kate, I've got a couple of questions. I know there's 24 of these
Better
restaurants.
Buzz
Yeah.
locations.
What's the nearest one, just for the record? I think it's San Clemente, but I just
There's
San Clemente.
Laguna Hills as well. And again, just for the record, there's no historic value to the facade that's currently existing there.
No.
It's like a Disneyland facade, basically, right?
It has changed quite a few times
Right.
over the years.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah. Are we, I guess in the DSP, but in general, are we giving any consideration to the number of coffee houses that are in this area, and or are we leaving that to the market to make those determinations?
Thanks for the question, Commissioner. It used to be that land use saturation was a key consideration, and that was deliberated at length for quite a few projects some years ago, you might recall.
Right.
With the most recent amendment to the downtown specific plan, and on the recommendation of an economic consultant in part, the city did move away from that type of an analysis.
That's what I thought.
And with that, there was a change to the formula-based business findings as well, so I'll point that out as well for the commission's benefit.
All right. As far as the Class 1 CEQA determination, does staff consider this a minor alteration?
It would be considered, it's mainly facade improvements,
Okay.
interior improvements, and the signage that's being proposed.
I know we don't deal with the interior really at all, but they are gutting the entire store, I think.
Correct. Generally, interior improvements wouldn't be subject to
Right.
environmental review.
But we are reviewing the interior design.
Yes, that is correct, within the context of the formula-based business findings.
On page 19 of the resolution, number 26, I'm curious as to when the facility is closed, why we are making them shut off their lights. It just seems to me it creates a dark hole and kind of a sense of permanent closure. Is that standard procedure? I mean, it'd be nice to have some lighting on the building at nighttime, I think, so.
That has been a standard sign condition of approval for many years, but it's at the Planning Commission's discretion as to whether it should be included with this application.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have for now. Thank you.
On the topic of the formula, it's my understanding that we're not necessarily restricting formula-based businesses as we were in previous times, but there is some sort of attempt to have it be Laguna-ized or in some manner differentiated so that it doesn't smack of sort of a stamped out formula, based solution. Am I correct in that?
Yes, that is correct, Chair Pro Tem.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I've only one question, but in the staff report, and I brought this up when I spoke with Christine earlier today, that it mentioned that there had been a number of vehicular accidents on this corner, and at one point, and the buildings got hit before, and I know at one point the city put some just basic concrete K-rails along there to deal with it, and then since then has put some relatively heavy concrete planters on that corner. Is staff concerned at all with that situation and feel as though any kind of traffic hazard has been mitigated to the extent that you're not concerned about creating an outdoor patio space on an area of a building that has been previously hit by cars?
It's an excellent question, Chair. The planters that are out there today that replaced the K-rail are rated to essentially withstand the effects of a head-on vehicle collision, similar to the K-rail that previously existed. Public Works did ensure that those replacement barriers met similar performance rating.
Okay, and have looked at the placement of those in relationship to the existing building and these proposed improvements and feel as though, based on the traffic and the potential trajectories, that by itself is enough? Did staff consider asking the applicant team to look into any further measures? I was just wondering, and I asked them, had you guys thought about this, and have you thought that maybe that front wall, that small perimeter wall, we'll call it, just the delineation wall of the outdoor space there, could that be, further reinforced or done something to help, add further level of protection?
I think at a minimum, what staff could commit to doing is to coordinate the building plan check review with our public works staff, and they could look at whether any additional planters should be installed or whether some of those existing planters should be repositioned along the sidewalk.
Okay. And I brought this up with the applicant team as well, and I don't, and I'll just bring it up, but I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but the existing building and BJ's, who most recently occupied the space, had a sort of unique condition where they had their main front entrance, but they also had a back entrance that came off of the parking lot there from the Ocean Avenue parking lot. And it was a public access. It wasn't just for employees, and it was a way for people to come in from that side of the building into the pizza place and potentially walk in and order pizzas that way. And I have done that in the past, but that has now been removed. So was staff even aware of that, and did they have any concerns about that?
I don't believe I knew that they were accessing the space from the rear, but are we referring, there is a small storage addition that's being proposed at the back, so that access to the back parking lot will no longer be accessible.
Right. And I asked the applicant team, and they assured me, and I'm sure it'll get checked during building plan check, that doesn't create any kind of emergency egress issue or anything like that. They still will have a door there on the back portion of the building that comes out of the back of the house restaurant area, where I suppose in an emergency people could go out that way as well as, and it allows staff to go out that way. But it was just a circulation kind of thing where, and again, it was a bit of an unusual situation. And speaking with them, and I agree that it was a back hallway that kind of came in and go into the restaurant, and it went by what was the existing restrooms there. And it was not highly visible from the employees working there. So it kind of created a potential security issue or something where people could kind of wander in the back and just start getting into the bathrooms and stuff. So anyhow, I just
add that the plans were routed to building for review, and based off of the proposed occupancy, I don't believe that a second means of egress is required.
Okay. Yeah, that's it for questions for me right now.
We've got a couple follow-up.
Sure.
Has there been any correspondence from the public on this submission? Usually,
we have not received any public correspondence.
Usually something this dramatic of a change would, somebody's would have some more opinions. We were out there and looking at the white and saw the sample on the wall. It's really, really white. It's a really glaring white color, and I know that we've often felt that, I guess in the spirit of sort of neighborhood, and I'm not going to say it, that we've often discussed, toning those down a little bit. Does staff have any opinion on the amount of the super white color on the facade?
We did not have conversations on the proposed white shade, but that's something that we could condition if the commission prefers a warmer shade of white.
I'd be interested in the other commissioner's opinion, but I thought it was pretty, there's going to be just a lot of glare, with that really strong sun coming off of that super cool white. Okay.
Okay, to the applicant team, please tell us more about your project.
Thank you, Commissioners. Anders Lassiter, architect for the project. I'm here tonight with my project manager, Christine Miller, and representatives for Better Buzz, Chris Mendoza and Joey Stewart. So we're here to answer any questions you might have, and I wanted to take you through a presentation that I believe Kate has ready to put up on the screen as we speak.
One moment, please.
No pressure. I'll start by maybe saying that we're here to talk about Better Buzz, but I really feel we're here to talk about the best buzz. I think this is going to be a truly unique and special link in the chain, if you will, of the establishments they have. I think it's really the jewel on the chain of the establishments because of its location and what we're proposing to do with the building. And I think we'll demonstrate that as soon as Kate gets our presentation up.
We don't have all night, come on.
Yeah, come on, Kate. Good thing I had some Better Buzz coffee before I got here, and I'm wide awake. It might take a while, but hopefully not. So here we are to present Better Buzz Laguna Beach to you. Next slide, please, Kate. Perfect. Some context and location. It's important to understand where we are. Everybody's visited the site. We all know the downtown and this stretch of highway very well. But what was important to us was to not only understand where we are along the line of storefronts on the inland side of Coast Highway, but to look across the street and to see what was it that we were looking out to, what will the customers see, and what is the reflection of the community. And we see the ocean, we see the sky, we see the boardwalk, we see Main Beach Park, we see the lifeguard tower, and all of those became an important ingredient in the Better Buzz solution that we have proposed today. Next slide. Some context. Of course, we're along the coast, and of course, we're dealing with this existing site. There's been a lot of conversation about that building, and at first blush, you might think, oh, that's a cute little village character building. But honestly, it's a building that's transmogrified itself over many years, and those dormers that are there were an addition in the 70s to cover up what was actually a really cool building that we discovered when we looked into the history of the building. And part of the way we've approached this project was to bring that really cool building from the 70s back, and I'm going to show you that in a little bit. That lifeguard tower there, very important for what we did with this proposal. The white of the lifeguard tower, the blue of the tiles and of the ocean, the color of the boardwalk, and the color of the lawn at Main Beach Park all play a very strong role in what we decided to do with the building outside and inside. Next slide. The existing condition, I wanted to point out that canopy that's out front. We have 8 feet from the sidewalk to the underside of the canopy, so it is a very low structure. We were somewhat discouraged by the idea of hanging a blade sign down from it, lest somebody be walking along and bonk their head on it. So that was part of the reason we raised the blade sign to the upper element. Next slide, please. And the existing condition of the Better Buzz we all know, and Commissioner Whiten, you had visited one, you've probably seen what would be familiar to you here, the interiors of the Better Buzz locations that are very common in terms of the dynamic graphics, the black and white, and some of the materials and the strong gold color as well that is emblematic of what their brand has deployed across the other links in the chain. Next slide. But we wanted a Better Buzz that really reflected Laguna Beach, and when we researched into the file, we found this really charming photograph that captures the spirit of what we want for this sidewalk. People strolling down the sidewalk, seeing people dining in that dining area that BJ's had clumsily enclosed so many years ago. So our proposal opens that back up and embraces the geometry of what this building was designed to be. This is the Salty Sam's seafood restaurant that had occupied the space for some years. And we wanted to embrace that in the new design, which is why we've got that tower element now highlighted in the metallic roofing material. We've got that strong horizontal canopy that they had, the outdoor dining patio that's open to the sidewalk. And then above that outdoor dining patio, we've created openings to allow light to filter through to help lighten up the facade and the interior. Next slide. Again, looking at the lifeguard tower to give us the inspiration we wanted for colors and materials and flavors and all of that beautiful Laguna Beach loveliness. Next slide. Those are the materials that we've then come up with as a way to try to find what Better Buzz looks like as seen through the filter of Laguna Beach. Next slide. Next slide. Facade exterior, next slide. Okay, before and after. Commissioner Kellenberg, you'd asked us about this, and this is a scene I wanted to make sure you saw the kind of fitting of our space into the context of what is there now and what we propose it would look like. Next slide, please. The area highlighted in blue is the area that's becoming the new outdoor seating area. We're taking the facade back to the line on the left and opening that whole area up. So it's not going to be closed at the sidewalk like BJ's was. Next slide. A view from the inside on the left looking out at the patio, and a view from the sidewalk looking into the patio. Next slide. And these are, I think, for Commissioner Whiten, some important slides. These are the proposed interior furnishings, fittings, and the colors and the materials deployed in this design. So these interiors are specifically the design we have proposed. You can see in the upper right photograph, we have a wood boardwalk, if you will, that goes from the street into the store, echoing that same rhythm and pattern that happens across the street at Main Beach Park, where the boardwalk lines the beach. And the soft colors of the ocean, the sand, and the natural surroundings are what was really the inspiration for the interior of this Better Buzz.
You're missing some trash all over the place.
Oh, yeah, trash and maybe some unhoused individuals could be under the desk or the tables too, if we'd like, but no, I joke. Next slide, please. That's it. I thank you for your support. I'd love to answer any questions that you have. We're here to find a way for these folks to walk out with an approval, because I too had dark hair when I started this project with the city, and I'd like to see these nice folks get what they're looking for and have the city get what they're looking for as well. So let us know what we can do to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. How about answering that question about traffic safety? And any concerns about that? You feel as though those concrete planters are effective and that's all that's needed?
That is an exceptional question, one we hadn't looked at, and one I would not go on record to answer and say as an architect, I can say that that is what you need for traffic safety. We didn't put those things there, somebody else obviously did. And since there was indoor seating in the same exact location we're proposing the outdoor seating, that must have been taken into consideration. That having been said, we'd be happy to study with either Caltrans or the Public Works Department a way to reevaluate the location of those planters. The other thing we can do is in the wall itself, the wall that's in front of our outdoor seating area, just simply reinforce that with some steel flagpoles, meaning having a deeper foundation that goes down into the ground so that if it were impacted, it would create a little bit more of a barrier. As the architect for the client, I could suggest that is a really good idea, but I really wouldn't be able to speak to the effectiveness of what's already out there, but I would have to assume that was taken into consideration.
Okay, and I'm sure you had your reasons for creating that additional space towards the rear and removing that back door. You have any concerns about that, taking away some circulation that may have been a good thing, or you think that that was a bad thing and it's not
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And I think you touched on it when you talked about the unusual character of how it came into the building past the service areas and created an uncontrolled entry. For this particular operation and for the way the Better Buzz stores like to operate, it makes sense to funnel people in one direction and to move them through the store in a controlled way. Having that back entry for the public is not going to allow them to do that. But we do have a back entry and exit out of the kitchen and storage area in the back. So notwithstanding the fact that the overall occupancy of the total building only requires one exit by building code, we do have two, which allows us to do deliveries and service entry from the back parking lot. So there is an entry back there, it's just not a public entry.
Okay, and the picture of the parking area back there that showed all those dumpsters back there, that was a relatively recent photo?
I don't know when that photo was taken. It may have been from Google Earth. We have no knowledge of anyone having dumpsters there. We certainly don't
So
have
I thought as soon as that trash area, dedicated trash structure was added to the parking lot there, that all the restaurants in the area there were utilizing that, and we got rid of all those dumpsters in that
We were at
alleyway
the site
and
yesterday
parking
and
area.
did not see any dumpsters in that location, so I don't know how or when that photograph was taken and why those dumpsters were there.
Okay, well,
No,
we've got a new trash delivery service here in town, and so I guess, they'll.
We would obviously like to use that communal trash area. I think that makes sense for everybody.
Well, I think especially for them, the trash people who have to pick it up, it's made it, more convenient, I guess, and probably more just easier to deal with than all multiple spots all along the way there.
Surely.
So, okay, well, that answers my questions.
I
Questions?
just have a couple. I'm just curious, and from a revenue standpoint, to what degree is revenue coffee versus food? I mean, to what degree are you a coffee shop? To what degree are you a cafe?
Yeah, my name is Chris Mendoza with Better Buzz. I would say the sales are largely coffee. That is the focus of our business, but we do offer, some soft menu items like yogurt bowls, avocado toast, and some sandwiches as well. But, like I said, it's largely coffee and drinks.
Can I follow up on that? And because of that, do you guys in general generate a lot of trash, or as a coffee business, I wouldn't imagine that you guys generate as much trash as a full-blown restaurant would.
Right, definitely less than the BJ's that was before us.
Okay.
So, I think that Laster's tried to Laguna-ize the facade to a certain degree. And are you doing it in other ways, and like from a menu standpoint, or
definitely we plan to?
In other words, individualize this, and of course, this is all about trying to sort of break respond to the formula issue.
Of course. And so, in addition to those facade updates, that white wall you saw on the rendering, we are commissioning with a local Laguna Beach artist to have them do a mural on that wall. Just to kind of further Lagunify
the inside wall. Yeah,
it's the inside wall on the patio.
On the patio,
from the street.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so
we talked about that. Yeah.
In addition to that, we do plan on making having a couple menu items on our menu that is specific to Laguna Beach that you can only get at this location.
So, one of the issues and maybe it's just me, and I can be talked out of it by other commissioners, but to me, and I think it showed it when you did the blockscape. There's a lot of sort of darker, earthier colors, and then there's this like really bright white, this in very high contrast to all the other buildings. And you could make the case, well, that's kind of a cool thing. It's eclectic. It's creating more street interest, and
sure.
I think that's a legitimate case. I could also see a good business case. You're over at the beach, and you're looking across the block, and you're just this white glare, super bright, facade catches your attention, and then you've got your huge sign, which I assume you're good with bringing it down into sort of the regulatory criteria. I just changed topics, but the size of the sign, yeah.
Yeah,
the condition, you're okay with that?
We're willing to comply with the size regulations,
okay.
Of course.
But anyway, so do you have any, any issues with maybe toning down the white just a little bit to where
not at all. And yeah, Kate can pull up that side. We've had this conversation about that particular shade of white, and we definitely are open to utilizing a warmer shade that isn't so glaring and bright.
Okay. I think that's it.
Yeah, and as long as I follow up on that, we've had discussions about this before, particularly about whiter buildings, particularly when they're on these high traffic streets. That some consideration, something you should think about is the street and the traffic generates a lot of just road grit and dust and stuff, and it could by having a lighter, whiter color, it could lead to more frequent maintenance needs and repainting needs and stuff. So something to consider.
Well, can I just tag on real quick? Oh, yeah, go ahead. And just for consideration, there's kind of an Art Deco kind of feel to me about this, or a modern, kind of feel of the design, which I really kind of like, because it does give a certain periodness to it, which I think contributes, to the character of the street. The vertical element with the tile in it is also has a little bit of a deco-ish, kind of character. And one of the things we talked about was maybe taking that element and using the tan color on it, which would actually emphasize it a little bit more and pull it out as an architectural element. So I don't know if there's any opinions on that idea.
Yeah, if you look at the this slide, it's
look, you did it. Good
Yeah,
for you. You're
we took that into
fast.
consideration, and
Yeah.
the design is consistent with that small modification.
Additional questions?
Yeah, I'm curious about stopping in the 1970s when you did your historic research. Because if you go a little further back, you see a completely horizontal building before they added the tower on the Salty Sands. And the Laguna Historic Society must have, 10 postcards of this section of Coast Highway. And of course, this building is a shared structure with the jewelry building and Toes on the Nose, and it's a very horizontal. I am really surprised that you didn't go, knowing your design firm, you didn't go further back, because there's nothing nice to me about that tower. And I don't think it adds anything to the facade. So tell me a little bit about...
I wasn't talking about that, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't talking about that tower. I was talking about the one on the left-hand side.
Oh.
That's what I was talking about.
Oh, no, I thought that's, okay, no. So, you have any thoughts about that?
Sure. You're right. We did look further back than Salty Sam's, and we did look at collections of historic photos that we actually have in our office. We've, over the years, amassed a good collection of those. And it was very interesting to see what it looked like in the past. One of the concerns we had to begin with was erasing what we already erased in terms of those dormers, and trying to find a way to peel back just enough to create the better buzz that's going to be distinctive and refreshes the facade without sort of a wholesale rethought of the entire building.
Well, is that an economic decision, or is that's what I'm curious about?
No, I wouldn't say it was an economic decision, but when we found the image of the Salty Sam's, there was a lot about it that spoke to us in terms of what we were trying to achieve in terms of the street activation and kind of the spirit of the building. And it was a modern building, to be sure. Certainly for 1970s, it was a modern take on the building, and we liked that. So that was the reason I wouldn't say we stopped at 1970, because we certainly did look back, but we embraced that version of the building as the one that we felt we could revitalize.
Yeah, because originally, as you know, that was an outdoor patio when it opened. It's exactly what you're showing here.
Yeah.
Except that vertical
yeah, and the
metal
DNA of the building reveals that too, in that it's very clear where the exterior of the building used to be and where that front patio was kind of enclosed over time.
All right. Now, the other thing is, are you aware of the Subway sandwich submittal and the process that Subway went through?
It's folklore that's well known throughout town, yes.
Okay, because I'll just read you what they conceded to us. They did everything we asked. Now, I don't know where we're going to end up here tonight, but this is what they agreed to. Complete lack of branding. No green and yellow anywhere. Not on their Subway sign, not on their uniforms, not on the interior, no logo on their cups, no branding of any sort on the walls, no window signage. They had a unique Laguna menu, no T-shirts, no interior wall, window hanging, or Subway promotional brand sign. The exterior signage was limited to the awning and a blade sign at pedestrian level. And it took 2 meetings to get to that point, and they agreed, and they had a completely unique, they have only 3 other places that are this cafe model. Everything, they had to strip out 50% of what they had in there. I mean, in looking at these sketches in here, see these, life is better buzzed in Laguna Beach. And yet, in the presentation tonight, you didn't show that sketch. Was that intentional? Is that removed from your submittal? All the phrases that are on the wall in the Better Buzz Coffee.
Yeah, no, nothing was removed from the presentation intentionally.
But, okay, but the question is, will there be any of those, that phrasing on the wall? Life is better buzzed, get buzzed, or all that stuff. Is that going to be part of the interior package?
Before I answer or ask Chris to answer, I'd like to just make sure I'm understanding the question, because Commissioner has prefaced the question with a description of some other restrictions. Are you asking, in the context of what had been approved at this other location, are we willing to, are we not proposing? I'm just not sure I understand the question. I'm sorry.
No, I'll be very straightforward here. I think the interiors are really sterile and a lot of hard surfaces. I feel like I could go in there with a hose and clean it all down. And when I was in the San Clemente one, people were sitting outside, but only one person was sitting inside. And a whole bunch of firemen came. They all stayed outside. It's just not a comfortable place to sit. And I felt it was very corporate. Everything was bolted down to the ground. It was too many patterns, too many colors. And I didn't know why spend all the money on that nonsense when what you're really selling is coffee. And the coffee was good, but there's a lot of visual stuff on the inside. And this was it's a different style than Subway, absolutely, but it's the same, it's corporate branding. It's a corporate branding. So and I may be a minority of one on this issue, but we had consensus about Subway, that even Subway's colors had to be removed. And any kind of reference to Subway, and no retail stuff, nothing, right? I mean, I'm not asking you if you'll do it. I'm just saying, are you aware that that's what it took for a franchise to get approved here?
And how's that franchise doing?
How is that franchise doing? Yeah, they decided not to do it, right? Yeah, but I mean, if franchises are a big issue, as you know, Anders. And
certainly.
You know.
And I asked that question not to be flip, but just to point out that we're trying to, I think what we're trying to do is to find a balance between a business that has proven successful through the number of locations it has, in getting into a location that would be a benefit to both them and to the city. The BJ's has sat, ironically, BJ's is a chain too, but it has sat empty for a very long time.
Yeah, nobody's happy with that.
And the building is in, a terrible condition. So I think these folks are trying to find a way to create a unique Laguna reflection, as I mentioned, through the lens of Better Buzz. So what that ultimately looks like that you as the commissioners will be willing to support, I don't know for sure. I think we aimed at a target that we believe embraces both needs. That is, the needs for Better Buzz to not become something completely different, and the need for Laguna to have something that's very unique and not just another one of their stores. One of the first things I said to them is, you won't have another one of your stores here in Laguna. That's just not going to happen. What are we going to do to create something unique? So that was our target, to be sure.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I also hear that's why I asked the question in the questions section of the meeting of the staff, whether staff had talked about the signage and the size of the signage. And it has been communicated to the applicant about the signage and we have here is, you know, even the staff doesn't recommend it, okay? It's really out of bounds. And it's in a location that isn't pedestrian-oriented at all. It looks like it's oriented toward pedestrians on the beach. It's totally inconsistent with the streetscape, with the buildings. There is a, Toes in the Nose has a small sign. It's very innocuous, and it blends back because it's faded and the wall it's on is faded. But if you look at that elevation that you showed, Better Buzz is up at the top of the building, doesn't relate to the street at all, facing the ocean, doesn't relate to vehicles, doesn't relate to pedestrians. And that after learning that staff, you had a discussion with staff about it, and this is what came back, it concerns me. It doesn't sound like you're trying to fit in and or even getting the point that you, the architect, are trying to make, that you have to do things a little differently here than you might do when you have a corporate franchise situation.
If I told you they wanted a bigger sign, and this was the reduced sign that we brought forward, that might change perspective a little bit. But to reiterate what we'd said earlier, we're here to listen to what the commission has to say, because we'd like to find what the solution would be. If it's reducing the size of the signs to the maximum that's allowed per the code, fine, we can do that. I fear what I'm hearing is something different than just that. So,
I mean, you can see the pictures of the interiors. Everybody can see those, but I always do this when we have this kind of project, go and look at one of the franchises, and it was the San Clemente one. And, you know, that would, and even though we could condition it, I guess, to remove all the phrases on the wall and some of the other stuff, it's a pretty busy, hardcore kind of interior, and in that particular location, not all probably, but a lot of this furniture is bolted and immovable, which, you know, wouldn't be very Laguna-esque. It's just a question of, you know, trying to find the right note, which is what you're saying. But I'm asking these questions to try to get a sense of the flexibility here, because my impression was that this was as far as the applicant was willing to go. And if that was the case, you know, I don't know. We're not here to make comments, but I want to ask these questions so we can get right to what I think is the heart of the matter. Is this truly appropriate for Laguna?
Sure.
And all the comments that the other commissioners have made, questions they've made too, color, size, etc. How much flexibility is there, is what it boils down to.
I think that answer is best described as, depending on what you're asking us to flex, there may be great flexibility. Depending on other things, there might not be flexibility. So I think what I would love to hear is, what are the things that you feel we need to flex on? I mean, if it was simply the color of the white, we can find another white. You know, and not to, again, sound flip, but all you have to do is turn around and the lifeguard tower is white. The Hotel Laguna is white. The White House is white. There's probably a dozen buildings within a stone's throw that are white. So white isn't an unusual color for the buildings in that area. If it was too bright of a white that we had sampled, well, we could certainly find a softer white. I don't think that would be a problem.
Okay, I won't make any comments right now. How about flexibility on that tower?
If I understand Commissioner Whiten's request, is it to eliminate the tower?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm just saying, are you flexible about it? I don't know how any of the other commissioners feel. I just exploring.
I think that if that were something that we needed to flex on, we could find room to do that.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, okay.
Make a note, Christine. We're losing the tower.
And, okay, I mean, I don't need to go any further with this. That's the main thrust. It's flexibility, trying to get, from my perspective, can we get towards a better fit? And they're different component pieces. Thank you.
Yeah, so you're welcome. And certainly if there are specific things that there is a question about or we can make changes to, I'm happy to.
So I have a question of the commissioner. I mean, you went through quite a list of things that you felt were non-Laguna about the interior. Would you like to be more specific in as you were with the tower in requesting that they make modifications on the interior?
Yeah. Number one, all these Life is Better buzzed reminders. I think we don't need that. We're getting into comments.
Deliberations and stuff.
Oh,
And we haven't even gotten through questions yet. So,
Yeah.
I mean, really, we should,
Move it
ask our
along.
questions of the applicant team. Then we should make our comments and then try to reach some sort of consensus. If, because right now, it seems like I understand, but you're individually negotiating with them before we've even had that comments between, is to see whether or not anybody agrees with you.
No, I said, I don't know, I may be the minority of one. I'm just trying to figure out if there is flexibility here with the applicant, rather than just us going through our comments and saying, well, what about this? Maybe this would be good, when the applicant's point of view may be, no, this is, I can't move on these things. And I'm asking these questions because I feel it is going to be helpful in the discussion. It'll be more efficient.
Okay. Commissioner Dubin, questions?
Yes. Good evening, applicants. I know some of these are going to be kind of redundant from what we discussed, but I want them on the public record anyways. So first question is about the art in public places. I know we discussed that down there, and there's a potential for a wall mural or some it could be a wall sculpture, it could be any number of things depending on, So the question is, are you planning on doing an art piece versus the In Lieu of fund?
Kate, would you mind page 18 in the presentation, please? As Chris had mentioned earlier, there's a wall that is the side of the outdoor patio. You'll see it here in just a moment. It extends into the building as well. It's the wall at the back there. And that wall is not only extending horizontally from the front of the patio into the space, but also extends vertically up into the roughly 1.5-story volume that is the building there. That wall, from a very early stage, had been the target for what we thought would be a terrific mural location. And we talked about a mural that reflected perhaps not only the colors and the textures, but the actual, places of Laguna, perhaps some sort of a map or some sort of a collection of Laguna's greatest hits, as an idea. That conversation led to the Better Buzz group soliciting proposals from 4 Laguna Beach artists for what that mural might be. And I think that they're in discussions with them on that. It hasn't been solved what the subject would be, nor which artist would be hired to do it. That's why it's not here tonight. Our application reflects us participating in the in lieu process solely because we don't have the mural to present to you today. If we did, we would show it. But that is the intent. So should the project be approved and we solve who's going to do the mural and how much it's going to cost and what it'll look like, we would want to bring that back to you.
Okay, so you're sort of in a balancing act on that right at the moment in terms of in lieu of, if you pay the in lieu of, you're not going to get that back to pay the artist probably if you decide to do a mural later on, so.
Yeah, perhaps staff can clarify when the in lieu fee is paid relative to the rest of this process. I would think that simply getting an approval from Planning Commission tonight, let's assume that were to happen, we're not going to be charged the in lieu fee tomorrow because we don't have a project yet. Nothing's been approved from the building department, nothing's been built, the health department hasn't approved it. It wouldn't make sense that we would pay that. So in that
So
interim,
you'd have some time to ponder the.
and that was kind of our intent, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just curious.
Sure.
As far as there's on-site cooking, or at least sandwich prep, are you roasting coffee beans on site? Is there a roaster there? I mean, or is that off-site somewhere and brought in?
Yeah, so for all of our stores, they get their beans from our Vista Warehouse roasting facility in San Diego.
So you're not doing on-site?
We're not roasting on site.
Okay. And I know this is sort of dovetails into all this other conversation about, what makes this really special to Laguna Beach. And I know you described, the visual architecture, and I think you mentioned a few of the food items. You're, at least in name, they're going to be, Maine Beach turkey sandwich or whatever, I don't know what that is, but is it what, besides the visual part of it, I mean, is there actual food items that are going to be really unique to Laguna Beach? I mean, that, you can't get at one of your other stores?
That is the intent to, for our team to come up with specific menu items for this location, like you said, that you cannot get at other locations.
Okay.
As shown on the screen, here are some proposed menu items, hearkening back at the top there to the Salty Sam's as our genesis for form and inspiration. Salted caramel is a popular flavor, so the Salty Sam caramel latte sounded like it was a winner right off the gate, or right out of the gate. The Ocean Latte Buzz Bomb, the Boardwalk Bowls, Laguna Avocado Coast as a play on toast, and the Laguna Sunny Sandwich. These were ideas that were explored, and Better Buzz is really interested in including these in their menu to make sure that they've got unique offerings that are not available in the other stores, and not just a renamed something, but something that's actually
what I was going to
unique.
ask. Is it just a name only, or is it actual?
Yeah. No, we had that conversation early, that these need to be unique offerings, and they need to be something that sets the store apart, in addition to the other visuals and et cetera.
As far as deliveries, I'm assuming those will be in the alley and come through the kitchen door.
Correct. In fact, we space planned the building around the idea of getting deliveries in as efficiently and quickly as possible. So our delivery door is directly opposite the cold storage door, and then the dry storage is immediately next to that. So the thought is we can move things very quickly into the building and get the delivery trucks out.
Okay. And I know we talked about this on site, but the blade sign with the vinyl lettering, you're proposing to eliminate the vinyl lettering and do a painted or...
Yeah, metal standoff letters, painted metal on pins is the material that has been...
That's for the wall sign, but I was talking about the blade sign.
And sorry, yeah, on the blade sign, a natural material, either metal or wood, but we would lose the vinyl, yes.
Yeah, because I don't think it'll hold up in that environment.
Yeah.
The steel planter edging, I mentioned Cor-Ten steel for that in that environment. If you use just mild steel, it's not going to last.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
Can we confirm that will be Cor-Ten?
Cor-Ten would be the preferred choice on our end too. Yes, thank you.
My last question really, and we talked about this as well, has to do with the vertical standing seam tower. Now, that may be in question at this point, but I know the picture shows a much lighter, light bronze, or I don't know what you're calling it, but there's other pictures, including the sample board, that it looks very dark in there. And I know, I don't know if you were able to bring...
Yeah, page 17, if we could see that, Kate. We brought from the metal roofing manufacturer, this is their color chart in the middle, and the color that we would want to propose and get approved would be the cool walnut, which we think is most closely captured in the render there to the left. So not the dark bronze, not a black, but something that was lighter.
Okay.
Should the tower make it through
Disappear.
the gauntlet, it would be that color.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's about, going back to the alternative north roof element where you, instead of white, it became beige.
Page 18, please. Yeah.
Personally, I think it's a nicer addition because it sort of frames the upper white wall and it eliminates a little bit of the white. So, I mean, if we were going to have a vote on that, that's where my...
We'd be happy to adopt that.
I think that's all the questions I have. Thanks. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. I think that's it for our questions. And I believe you're all part of the applicant team, but I'll open up the public hearing to members of the public anyway. Is there anybody, members of the public, who'd like to speak on this item? Going, gone. All right. We'll close the public hearing and we'll go to commission deliberations. I just would suggest, because, you know, as much as I respect all of Commissioner Whiten's questions, and there's nothing wrong with kind of telegraphing your overall thoughts through your questioning process, I'm just not sure if we're all 100% on the same page regarding all the issues that were raised. So I would suggest that we just go through, make our individual comments, and then after we're all done, then we regroup and see if we can reach consensus on these items. If you had some pretty strong feelings about this, if you'd like to begin, or if you'd like to go last, whatever, I'd leave it up to your discretion. Okay. Who, any of you two would like to begin? Commissioner Dubin?
Well, could you open and just quickly so I can ask one question?
Okay. I thought we just asked questions, but
I know,
I'll reopen the public hearing for further questions.
Getting to the tower, since that seems to be sort of are you guys in love with that, or if you were able to remove it altogether, would that be a preference, or do you like it as an architectural feature or something that makes the building look unique, or does it seem cumbersome, or are you trying to pay homage to the 70s?
I would say that it remains a part of this building for a couple of reasons. One, it's there already.
Okay.
Two, it was identifying the entry to the building. It exists over the opening to where you would walk, and being a natural location then for that sign to live on, it seemed like it was an object that architecturally served a purpose. And having been there already and being a part of the Salty Sam that we were trying to echo, albeit in a new set of materials and in a new perspective, that's what drove us to keep it.
Okay, so you weren't like, if we could get rid of that, that'd be great. It was more like it's an interesting architectural feature.
Yeah,
okay.
It was an interesting architectural feature. Now, having said that, if it were to change shape, material, or to perhaps disappear altogether, I don't think that it would be an existential threat to the application for a Better Buzz to be in this location. So I will say it is not something that appears on any of their other buildings. It is not a form or a shape or a material that has been used on any of the others, which was one of the reasons we left it, because it is a uniquely Laguna thing as it's already here. But it doesn't have a place in our heart so strongly that we couldn't perhaps find an alternative.
I'm just curious. I didn't know if you were like, God, if we could just get rid of that thing, it's going to make our life better. So
sounds like getting rid of it might make our life better, though. So
well, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just because I'm into asymmetry and stuff. So that part aesthetically doesn't bother me. I just didn't know if you guys wrestled with like, are we going to keep it? Are we going to ditch it? Or so that's fine. I'm done with it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll reclose the public hearing.
Sorry.
And again, I'll ask if anybody in particular wants to start. Commissioner Killenberg?
Yeah, I can jump in. Where to start? I mean, overall, I like the design. I think you've done a nice job. I think it's refreshing. I think it's getting rid of the pastiche of the I was going to say Jolly Roger or BJ's. I think is when I first saw that going away, I thought, well, it's very kind of cottagey and village-esque, but it's kind of so fake and exaggerated. I don't know that it almost cheapens the street, when you really stand back and look at it, almost cheapens the blockscape. And I think this is a sophisticated design that you've done. I guess I'm ambivalent on the tower. One of the problems I'm having is if you take it away, then what's it look like? And does that make you have to come back? Because can you just take something that major out of the facade and just let's go, okay, well, that's okay. Whatever you do is fine. So that's weighing on me a little bit. I kind of liked it in the sense that it oriented you to the entry. You know, we always often ask our good architecture. You know, you see the entry is emphasized with architectural features, and this kind of does that. It does seem a little clunky, but it also breaks up the length of the facade and adds some architectural interest. So after all of that, I'm not going to be for or against, you know, getting rid of the tower. I'm going to be for softening up the color so it's not quite so bright. I'm going to be for adding the tan to the left tower element. And I'm sympathetic to Commissioner Whiten's discussion of the interior and sort of the corporate, a little bit of corporate. I mean, when I first saw it, it was, you know, I saw a lot of wood, and I don't know, is that wood on the walls, or is that, you know, the brown, the tan color?
That was intended as wood, yes.
Yeah. I mean, whenever I see wood, it's like, oh, that's, you know, that isn't that corporate. You know, I mean, that's kind of nice. That's soft. That's human. It does seem just a little austere, and the whole buzz thing, you know, is a little irritating to me. But it's your business, and you've been successful with it. So I don't know that I don't know that I really feel appropriate asking you to diminish that. But I am sympathetic to the idea of, you know, could it be softened up? Could it be a little bit less corporate? But I'm not sure how to do that. You know, how to give you concrete direction on how to do that. But overall, I mean, I guess those are my comments, and I'm most excited about, you know, getting a fresh building and having a open air outdoor seating area, which will help activate the space. I think that's a real plus to the street scene.
We'll go on down the line. I guess I'll go next. I'll start, you know, with the exterior facade and all that. I like the idea of setting back the entry wall, creating the patio. You know, I did have my concerns about traffic safety, but I'll leave that to your discretion to figure out. You know, I don't think it would be that major of a, you know, construction expense to make that a consideration, and, you know, to build that into the pony wall just as an extra safety feature. The rest of it, you know, I kind of like the front elevation, and I don't really have a problem with that tower element. You know, I understand that everybody can approach it and have a different feeling about it, but as Commissioner Kellenberg was saying, you know, to remove that, then what's left? I mean, it's just, yeah, you know, maybe back in the day it was a very horizontal building, and it certainly would turn it back into a very horizontal look, especially if that just remove that and just continue what's there and have the high white band, the low louvers, and then the horizontal awning element. And, you know, to me, that kind of cries out as strip mall, you know, something that you would see, you know, anywhere, and just very plain. And a lot of stuff that gets built that way, people look at it later and go, what can we do to try to add some sort of architectural interest to this thing? So I'm, you know, looking at it, that concentrate on the front elevation. I'm okay with it. I would agree that the white could be toned down somewhat. I just the white in general, and then that putting even a darker shade of tan on that other vertical element, I think would be nice as well. The signage should be reduced to, you know, the city typical standards. I think the blade signs location is not pedestrian. oriented. It's not, it's going to lack almost total visibility from pedestrian sidewalk traffic on that side of the street. I don't, it's going to be, it's just not going to be very visible. I understand that the awning height, makes it more difficult to have a blade sign hanging below that, and yeah, it could be a head clearance issue. So I don't know what to suggest other than suggesting that the signage get reduced and and agree with the staff's suggestion or basically condition of approval that the wall signage get pin mounted so it gives it a little bit more of some depth to it, and the changes to the blade sign and maybe rethinking about the blade location. Regarding the whole formula-based business issue, even though the subway application was not that long ago, I believe that in the interim we've revised the downtown specific plan, and there's been less emphasis on some of this differentiation thing. We're talking about what's considered a formula-based business that has 24 other locations compared to Subway, which has 40,000 locations. It's a different level of formula-based business. And so I really think that had a lot to do with a lot of the requests that we made of Subway. And some of us felt, even back then, more strongly about that than others did. The interior design, looking at, back to the exterior design and the comparison to some of the other locations, I think it differentiates itself enough from the other locations where you can't say and look at it and say, well, wow, this screams out as being just like all these other locations. It looks like some effort was made, and a lot of the other locations to make them not look exactly the same. In the interior, my only feeling about that is I know that it's under more of our potential scrutiny because of the formula-based business thing, where normally we wouldn't be involved in some of that at all. I'm willing to leave it a little bit more to the discretion of the building and the business proprietor here. And I just would agree that you have to be careful not to make it too sterile, and to anything that could maybe be considered to warm it up a little bit. Other than that, and it's just surprising sometimes where we come into these meetings and people can have strong opinions in different ways. And I just, when I was coming into the meeting, we just briefly talked about things on tonight's agenda without going into any details. And I got a sense that some of us were looking at this project with a little higher level of scrutiny than I was in particular. I originally, my feeling is going through the staff report and looking at everything, I'm thinking that this is a great improvement upon what's there right now, that, that we want new businesses to come into town. We want older businesses and the buildings to be revitalized. And I saw this as doing that. So that's kind of my feeling right now, and we'll see, what the other our other commissioner feels. Commissioner, do you want to go last, or do you want to go next?
Didn't you already speak?
No, I haven't.
Oh, those were questions. That's right.
So I'm just going to deal with the exterior. I think I'm in agreement that a warmer white would be preferable. The blade sign, I just think it detracts from the, if we're looking at an architectural feature and having that big giant blade sign up there, it seems out of scale and it seems in the wrong place to me. So if I was considering something, I would either move it over to this part, or make a much smaller horizontal sign that could go under the okay, I'll call it an awning, that people would not bump their heads on. You know, I think the blade sign where it is just doesn't make any sense, and I think it detracts from the architectural feature of that tower. I would be in favor of the tan going on the other, the north architectural tiled vertical there. The rest of it, I'm really okay with. I think, you know, the fact that the metal edging being core 10, it'll add a kind of a nice little rustic element there. I think if the blade sign was not in that location, or was in fact somehow tucked underneath the overhang and was smaller, I think that would just be a better location for it. I think it would clean up the upper part of the facade, and I would say in terms of the wall-mounted sign, whatever the city requires there, I think would be it doesn't need to be you know, that loud of a sign. You know, I think to get people to come in. As far as the interior, I think if a mural happens there, and it could be also a dimensional sculptural piece of some sort, I think that's going to add some interest there. As far as the interior goes, you know, I'm not a big fan of busyness in that regard, but I don't feel like I want to try to redesign interior features. It feels like a little bit of an overstep to me. So, yeah, I could approve the project with what I've described. The color of the vertical metal seam that you showed seems fine. It doesn't seem as heavy as the dark bronze that is normally used on that kind of stuff. So with the color on the other vertical element, the white toned down, the blade sign reduced in scale and located under the overhang, I would be able to approve the project.
Commissioner White.
All right, I'll start with the signage. I think the signage needs to be redone. The blade sign to come down under the overhang, there's an 8-foot existing clearance there from the sidewalk to that overhang, and you only need 7 feet by code to the bottom of the sign. So you can put, and there actually used to be a blade sign there, because you can see the old hinges hanging. So that could be the blade sign, and that the business name, the main sign, could move to a version of this tower, in my view here. That it should not be where it is. There is no precedent for a sign being that high on a building wall anywhere in downtown, and that this is the largest sign in the downtown in terms of the font size and in terms of the area. So the whole thing needs to be shrunk and to meet the code. And when you look at the size of the fonts on all of these businesses along the stretch of Coast Highway, they're not very big. And the biggest one is Finney's, yeah. And that sign is right down just above the gutter. So it's just perched, almost falling off the roof, right? So if you want to have that sign on the building, which, you know, is not pedestrian oriented at all, so I don't really feel the logic of it, then I would prefer to see it moved over the door you know, at below where the blade sign currently is. But I think it would be much more effective if it followed the pattern that already exists, which is to put the sign on the fascia of the overhang, which is where it is everywhere else. People are going to come not for your sign, they're going to come for your coffee. The word is going to get out that this is here. You don't need these big loud signs to bring people in. And it's not contextual, and it's certainly not Laguna appropriate. So that's my thing about the guidelines and the findings and the design guidelines say to use unique font and typeface. And this is not unique. I respect that. It's the corporate branding. But even a huge corporation, the biggest corporation on the planet, Food Corporation, was willing to be flexible about their colors and the whole thing. So they had a black subway. It was a tiny little sign that was on the awning, and there was a small blade sign. That was it. So this whole thing feels like Irvine to me, to be blunt about it. It really, I don't feel I'm not talking about, you know, village atmosphere here. I just don't feel all the words that are in the staff report about this design, these colors, all that. You know, I don't, doesn't feel like Laguna. So, but if I looked at toes on the nose, even if I was from somewhere else, I think, boy, that must be a small town somewhere. You know, toes on the nose, that's a surfing phrase. That's you know, this looks like a mall. And anyway, so that's the signage. The elevation, I absolutely agree with my fellow commissioners' comments about softening the colors, about the tower on the left being that the beige color is, I guess, the other one. And I don't think you need the tile in there. I think that's just going to look like, you know, the design element du jour. You don't need it. And if that was just the tan color, I think it would be fine. It would simplify the elevation even a little bit more. I love the artist mural. I think that's great. I love the outdoor seating. I think that's great. I'm not a great fan of this blue tile. I don't think it actually does relate to the lifeguard tower. The picture that you showed, the panoramic picture, this is the view from the patio, and you're looking out at the beach. The lifeguard tower is behind the banyan tree in that picture. So there isn't a direct visual connection. It's not right across the street, and there's no other precedent for this color anywhere on the street. And then this, I don't know, is this terrazzo, the counter, or is it plastic? I mean, what's the quality of the material here?
Talking about the wall?
No, the actual counter that's pin mounted on the wall. See, there's a little.
Right.
Anyway, one possible modification that might still keep part of the tower element is just to cut off the top piece and keep the slanted piece, you know, because that's part of the Salty Sam's thing. It goes slanted into and then you just have the cornice of the building running straight across. Then it's less massive. It just feels massive without purpose. It's not a chimney. You know, what is it? I mean, it's a leftover without referring to anything that specific to me, and it's not. This is our main street. This is our downtown. Our downtown, we're trying really hard to upgrade every aspect of that. We have a subcommittee on the city council, which is putting together, you know, maintenance guidelines for owners. We have a lot of empty buildings. We want a solid business to come in here, but we want high quality, and we want stuff that is appropriate. And if we have to come back for another hearing, I don't know why we wouldn't. I mean, I would, just for the signage. After seeing this is so out of bounds for me on the signage. But this is the main beach. This is our main street. We're trying to upgrade everything, and we don't need to. It's not a historic building. We don't need a historic renovation, but we need something that feels a little more grounded and a little more Laguna than this. This I just feel isn't quite there yet. The interior, it still feels corporate to me, and I think Commissioner Kellenberg said that, and Commissioner Sadler said that too. Exactly how to change it, it's hard to say, but having movable furniture, having wood, is that composite wood or is that real wood? That's a question, and it makes a difference in the quality of the interior, and these phrases on the wall. I mean, I think that the reference to the bees is fine, but it needs to feel a little more livable and lived in, and a little funkier. This is not a corporate town. We pride ourselves on not being corporate, and we want to welcome good quality, solid businesses, but not at any price, because it's kind of like, the goose that laid the golden egg. So I can't support this as it is tonight, and I don't know, and I may be the minority of one. And I don't know how my other commissioners feel about making a change to this tower element and the signage and the colors. I know everybody agrees about.
Can I dovetail in on the sign thing just real quick? I don't know if it's even allowed, but I was, looking at this again in terms of the Coast Liquor Store. They have that sign that's roof mounted, I guess, so that the letters are sort of freestanding. I'm just curious if the sign was mounted to the top of the awning, versus way up on top of the building. Would that be a consideration, or is it even legal with the city to do that kind of sign?
Yes, it would be legal on top of the awning. It would not be legal above the roof line. That would be considered a roof sign.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. I was thinking, dropping it all the way down on top of the awning as
It's
a
freestanding letters, you mean?
yeah.
I mean, that's
Like the
that's
Coast Liquor Store.
That's an idea, or even potentially like face mounted on the fascia, but not limited to the fascia depth, where maybe pop up above. Now, the only potential problem with doing something like that is you don't really get an opportunity to light it then, typically.
Can you put up the blockscape again?
Where it's,
Kate,
yeah. No,
could you find the slide that shows the streetscape? Is that what you were suggesting?
Blockscape.
Yeah.
It shows the whole block.
Yeah, I don't know. A couple things. I'm sure we're all done with our comments and stuff, but as I see it right now, where we're at is that for the most part, it seems like we three of us are
Page 11, please, Kate.
kind of in agreement with the overall design for the most part, right? And Commissioner Whiten has made some additional suggestions and stuff after we had gone through our comments. It seems all of us kind of had concerns with the signage. So, we could, well, we've got a number of options here. We could ask the applicant team to try to sort through all these different comments and stuff. Again, one commissioner has stronger feelings and more suggestions, substantive suggestions than the other three of us. We could continue this whole meeting and have you come back. we could ask staff whether or not at this point it would be a problem to bifurcate the project and try to approve the design, to approve everything except for the sign application and have the sign application come back. You could ask just for an up and down vote on exactly the way it is right now. Although most of us have made certain suggestions regarding color changes, toning the colors and things like that. That I think most of us would feel comfortable as making a condition of approval. Some of this other stuff, if we're talking about changing, major design elements on the structure itself, I'm not, then I start getting uncomfortable with I wouldn't be comfortable at all with saying, oh yeah, you guys have at it, you've heard it, just do this and do that. So I don't know. What's feedback from the rest of you guys?
To me, bifurcating the sign and having them come back with a sign program seems like a logical, an option. But I think before you go there, you have to answer the question about the tower. I think we need to do a straw vote on the tower to decide if we want them to do that major of a change on the elevation, because if they do, they have to come back.
Well, I'm okay with the tower as it is.
Yeah, in this image, it looks very dark, and that would be the problem I have.
They showed us that different lighter color.
I don't feel strongly enough to kick this down the road in that regard. I think the signage seems to be the bigger issue for me.
Which could be separated out.
Right.
Probably. Am I correct with that, Anthony?
Yes, that is correct.
We could do an approval with conditions that we've already discussed and have them come back with a different signage solution set.
Correct. Yeah, the only thing that is correct, Mr. Chair Pro Tem. The only thing I would be cautious is that would mean the addition or subtraction of any architectural features during the subsequent sign discussion would not be allowed. Does that make sense? That once you approve this, that is kind of the palette for which you work with, and then you guys would be able to dictate where the signs would
Absolutely.
go. But you then couldn't claw back into the previous one and say, actually, no, we want a different architectural feature here to support this sign idea.
I'm reading, my take of the pulse is that we move this along, we approve it with the tower, make all the comments related to the signage, make comments related to the other materials and paint. And I get a sense that that's a majority opinion.
I do as well. So I think we've just discussed it, and I think we're all okay with the tower. So really, in terms of, and I think we've all agreed that the signage needs to be rethought. So, then what are we asking for then beyond that? If and I'm sorry that Commissioner Whiten feels otherwise, but now that the tower remains, let's see what else we agree on. We all agree that a softer, a different tone, a darker tone than the bright white be used. And are we okay? Can we bring back up those options, those color options that we were shown? And while we're discussing that, and I think we all agree on the vertical element being even a darker shade, but more of a tan shade, closer to or matching
the same color,
the awning. Yeah. Okay, I'm okay with the tile infill on that vertical element. Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with the tile.
Are you?
I'm too.
Okay, so we pretty much have that whole upper portion of the front facade dealt with. Other than that, I think we all agreed that that it would be nice, also that the interior white wall of the patio space be also the softened color, and that would be an appropriate space for art and public space. However, that's not part of our, unless you want to come back in with an idea of that, or probably not, that will be something that's dealt with further on down the road, but that seems like an appropriate spot for it, and it would be good there. So that pretty much takes care of the front exterior of the building. So then beyond that, I think the consensus was that, for the most part, we're okay with the interior, that I don't know. I mean, either we are or we're not, because we're not going to, you know, we're trying to have them not come back for the design of the building at all. So are we okay with the interior of the building, the interior design?
It does have a little bit of a cold and personal feel to me. It doesn't seem as inviting. It reminds me of what happened at the fish place, you know, down under on the ground floor on the corner there underneath the sail loft.
Yeah,
and it kind of had this kind of look. It lasted about, you know, 6 months and it was gone. And now they've come in and they've warmed it up. There's more soft seating. It's more comfortable. It's more inviting. Now, I mean, I would like to see it more comfortable and inviting, a little bit more fabric, you know, real wood material and not faux, and, you know, real authenticity of the materials. But I think the first question is, I mean, we can get into that realm, or do we go the route of that's a little bit outside of our purview?
I have a question for staff. Is it outside of our purview at this meeting to talk about the interiors?
No, because it's formula-based business.
Yeah.
Yes, the chair is correct. Your purview over the interior design is limited to your evaluation of the two formula-based business findings, which do consider the quality of the interior and exterior presentation, with an emphasis on how this store is being differentiated from the existing locations.
Kind of my feeling is, I would say, you know, it's well designed. It's certainly not, you know, it's got a number of different materials. They've expressed their design kind of philosophy of trying to tie into the local coastal thing and some of the boardwalk and all that. Now, whether or not we necessarily agree with that or something, is that enough of a reason then to deny it? I would say my only kind of feeling is it going to be as inviting as it could be, and is it going to create as successful as a business as it could be? I don't know, maybe not, but is that really? You know, it's about again what Anthony said about the formula-based business part of it. Is it quality materials? Yeah, it's quality materials. Is it, you know, is it, you know, it's not like it's not a sterile operating room. It's not all white, you know, it's not vinyl floors and white walls and,
No.
you know, an operating room or something. I mean, it does have character, you know, whether or not I agree with that character.
No, listen, I want to like it, but I've been to one of these places with this.
But is this the
very
same as
similar, very similar. Yeah, not exactly the same, no, but similar feeling of being sterile. And is the wood real? You know, I think the suggestion of some fabric is great. Chairs, are they movable? And is everything?
Yeah, they're stools. I mean, look at them.
And then there's this retail component in here. There's quite a big retail component here. Yeah. And
I don't know. I'm willing to accept the interior as it is. Commissioner Dubin.
You know, I'm basically okay with it. I'm not a big fan of all the big lettering all over the walls. You know, I mean, I don't. It's like overstating the obvious to me.
I think so as well. But I mean, but that again, I'm not gonna die on that hill.
Well, no, you don't have to die on it. But why wouldn't we? I mean,
well,
because
we're then telling our business owners like, hey, you know.
Yeah, but think of the hand wringing we just did about a few colors on an orthodontist building on 3rd Street. This is the main beach. Right. This is Coast Highway. We're trying to dial up the quality of our downtown. And I feel that, why would I object so much? Because I care about the quality of the downtown, and this feels sterile. It really does to me. And I went to the place to see. I went to the place to look, and it is not. It feels like you could hose the whole place down. It does not feel in any way comfy, funky or anything like that.
Well, can we give them a few very specific, concrete suggestions that could actually be incorporated in a condition, so we could move on.
I think
you can
we
do
have.
it.
I think they've heard. I think they've heard us. I think they understand. They under our concerns, and you know.
But unless
again,
it's in a condition, they don't need to do anything
No,
different.
I mean, you know, if we put a condition and say, please consider softening the interior, or adding more
I'm
you know,
saying
natural
you can't-
materials and
so I'm
stuff.
saying you can't do
Well, we could throw a condition in there, but there's no enforcement. There's no way to make them do it. You know, so why do it? You know.
Is there? Or isn't there? Because if
So,
there
I mean,
isn't, we won't.
So any type of this subjective, condition of approval, sure, there is going to be some difficulty in enforcement, particularly too if the applicant or business owner thinks they are in compliance. It's going to be very difficult for staff to say this is soft enough, it's not soft enough, so I would advise against that. That being said, you guys are the planning commission. If you were to affect something like that, staff would try its best to execute it. But yes, there are enforcement challenges, big ones.
I'm just going to try one last time. I'm willing to accept the interior as it is, with the hope that they will consider some of the comments that we've made, and take them to heart and see what they can do. Commissioner Kellenberg, do you agree with that?
I like the color tonality of the interior. I think it's attractive. My concern would be about the color of the authenticity of the materials and the texture of the materials. And I do think that we could probably say something about that the wood is real, that there is fabric, that what appears to be a stone material really is a stone material. And I think that would be at least a step in that direction.
Yeah, I agree.
Staff comfortable with us making some sort of condition of approval along those lines? If we're to say, natural wood be used, natural stone be used, there be additional of some soft fabric material.
That would be implemented by staff. Now, to what extent, it may not be what the Planning Commission is envisioning, to the city attorney's point. So, yes, the Planning Commission may include that condition of approval to the extent that you can be specific about, say, which surfaces should receive these higher quality treatments. That would be helpful to staff.
Okay, there's a wood floor.
Commissioner Dubin,
That's a good question. I mean, I think one of the things that makes it seem institution is the floor, is the terrazzo. It's a terrazzo kind of floor. I wonder if there could be another, like a softer floor material or something that's a little bit more village-esque, dare I say.
Settle down.
Even stone would be more village-esque.
I just, I look at it, I've been looking at these interior shots, and, it's, my aesthetic doesn't go with this. It just feels a little chaotic to me, but I mean, I don't like to spend too much time redesigning somebody else's business. That's kind of how I feel, and it's, I'm not a big fan of all the big lettering and hyping the obvious. It's like to me, it's like you're putting too much frosting on the cake. It's a little overdone, but that's the corporate brand. But it does feel a little cold to me. It doesn't look like a place I would hang out at all. But that's me. I don't, I'm not assuming I know what other people think in terms of, do they find this inviting, interesting? Does it feel like a place where you could lounge around?
To me, the operational criteria should not be personal taste. It should be, does it depart from a formula business?
Right.
If this feels like a formula business, then we have an issue.
Right.
If it's just we wouldn't do it in our own living room.
No,
That shouldn't be the issue. It should be, is it formula? Does it reinforce a formula-based business character, or is this unique enough that it doesn't?
Well, it doesn't feel like Laguna to me. I know that, but is that wrong?
No, I mean, I'm not saying it has to feel village charm at all. But I think there has to be an authenticity of materials and fewer hard surfaces. It is, without trying to redesign, what we're looking here, are these all the wood enclosures and so forth, are those wood or are those vinyl? Or we don't know what those are. This is not, materials are not identified on a plan. This is terrazzo, this is wood, this is metal, this is whatever.
I'm just,
But where this, this doesn't show me the interior. This is tile, these tiles in the middle panel, the two, are the exterior tiles, aren't they?
no. Hey,
That's interior? Okay.
Public hearing's closed. No, I mean, the last thing we're going to do right now is get into,
Yeah, no, but all I'm saying is, I think there's a way for us to condition this. We don't have to review it. I trust the staff. So we have,
then it sounds like Commissioner Dubin and myself are basically okay with the way it is. Maybe it's not our personal preference, but I'm willing to approve it as is.
Okay.
If you and Commissioner Kellenberg feel otherwise, I will leave it up to you two to craft a condition of approval that you feel the staff can live with and that will achieve the end that you're trying to achieve.
yeah, I think Commissioner Kellenberg already outlined it.
Can I ask the applicant a question?
I really don't want to, because I really don't.
I don't understand what the second floor material is. Because there's
Okay.
two floor materials, and I only see one up
There's this
terrazzo kind of thing.
right with the warm sandy beach colors with pebbles. I am assuming that that's a tile type floor finish.
Yes, that is.
But in the plan, in the images you see, there's two completely separate floor materials.
And the other one is wood. It is the,
I thought that was a site, that was
That's a
wood on the
vertical
side.
wall.
That's a vertical wall.
That's not the floor.
okay. I mean, I could open the public hearing, we could have them describe each of these materials, but what is that
I'm
going
just
to do?
asking, I have just one question about, could the other material be a wood plank?
Okay.
Okay.
I will reopen the public hearing.
If the other material can be a wood plank,
Yes.
I'm sold.
Thank you. As I mentioned in our presentation, the intent was to have the entry pathway and along the service counter to be evocative of the wood boardwalk, and was planned as wood and is shown in our renders as wood.
And the other pebble material is what?
Is a terrazzo tile.
Terrazzo.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have terrazzo and then we have wood.
Yeah, and I think in the images, the terrazzo tends to dominate, but you can kind of see the wood in some of them, and then that's what I was trying to find is, what is, because I think that, to me, that makes a difference.
Are all the vertical wall surfaces that appear to be wood, are those wood? I'm a question for the applicant team. Are all the vertical surfaces that appear to be wood, are those real wood as well?
Yes, and the intent was to use authentic natural wood.
Okay.
Yes.
And the materials that appear to be stone, like they're
Are
almost a
authentic
travertine.
stone.
Real stone.
Is it
Yes.
travertine, a real stone, or
It's
similar?
a natural product, yeah.
Okay.
It's not a manufactured product. What
Okay.
page did you want her to be on? Okay, if I could direct the commission's attention to the upper right photo here, you can see this is coming in the front door, and one sees the runway of wood that is the entry pathway flanked by the terrazzo to either side. Do you see that?
And the wood is, what kind of material is it really?
All the wood that we've proposed
On the
and what's
floor,
in the
on the
sample is a white oak.
But on the floor that we're
White
walking,
oak.
it's real wood.
Yeah.
It's not a laminate or.
It was not intended to be, no.
Okay, I mean, now does that make any difference to you two to satisfy the fact that they're using natural materials
Yes.
that are?
Yes.
So-
Definitely, because if you go into one of their places and see all these hard surfaces, it's
It's not natural.
Not natural.
Okay.
No.
Okay,
Is
well,
the tan on the ceiling what material is that?
the ceiling material, is that wood as well?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And if I've got the mic open, I would just like to say that the furniture will not be bolted down. It will be movable.
Okay, good.
Yes.
And it's upholstered, okay. Well,
So,
Good to
again,
know.
That's,
yeah,
that has satisfied me.
Good thing we opened the public
Yeah.
hearing.
exactly.
Wait, is everybody done with questions now? May I reclose the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, I'll reclose the public hearing. Okay, now are we all generally satisfied with the interior? Okay, but we all have an issue with the signage. So if the applicant team, well, I'm assuming you heard our discussion and it appeared that you are, but I will open the public hearing for one last time. Do you have, the applicant team, have any particular issue with us bifurcating this approval process into this design review approval and the signage being a separate? You'll have to rethink about that, come back in, and come back to us for a revised sign plan.
That sounds fine, thank you.
Okay. All right. Any questions from staff at this point?
Yes, Chair, if I may clarify the conditions of approval that the Planning Commission is adding to the project. So I have what I'll call the deco tile element. I wanted to confirm that that would be a painted treatment and not wood clad. When I looked at the new renderings presented today, it did seem to be wood cladding that would match the wood cladding on the overhang.
Where are you talking about? Lost me.
On the left vertical element, the tower element.
Oh.
I believe
that's
the rendering looked like a wood siding or cladding rather than a paint application.
I thought it was
I'm not sure. Okay,
thought it
let's
was
go
a
back
paint
to,
application.
what are we talking about here?
This thing on the
Oh,
left.
no, that was, as far as I would know,
Painted
that's just
stucco.
painted. It was just going to be proposed as being a more of a tan color.
Understood.
Okay. So I guess here, as I recall, what we're asking for is that the bright white color on the front facade and in the interior patio area be to the softened color, which I don't, again, we brought up those colors. Did we agree on which of those? Were we okay with the one that they had circled? They had one circle that they said proposed. Okay. Are we okay with the, whatever that is, West Highland?
It'll darken.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yes, okay, so we're all okay with that. So, okay, so we've got that, the white being darkened to this color.
For the standing seam tower, the warmer color that was shown tonight was, I think, walnut was the descriptor used in the applicant's presentation.
And I believe we're all okay with that, right?
Can we see
Correct.
that again?
Can we just flash
Yeah,
that?
there it is. Cool walnut. I'll reopen what, did I ever close the public hearing? What?
Yes,
I'll
you did.
reopen the public hearing.
Just to clarify, thank you, Chair. The name of the color is walnut. The cool indicates that it is a cool roof qualified product.
Oh.
That has to do with energy consumption and not related to the color. So the
Okay.
color is just walnut.
All right, thank you.
Since we're open
Yep.
for, when I'm looking at on this same page, I'm looking at the tower, and it appears to be really a super light bronze, like undarkened bronze, which, the walnut, I don't know how they describe something that to me looks like a kind of a dark gray as a walnut, but, that's just me. I'm wondering.
It looks quite dark to me.
It does.
Walnut looks dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's not, is that what's rendered in this elevation? The
That's
walnut?
not specifically what's rendered. Yeah.
Okay.
To clarify, this choice of walnut came as a response to our conversation at the site. If staff could zoom in, perhaps on that center color chart, one could see the very dark color. There's dark bronze, and just to the left of it is weathered copper. Do you see the weathered copper above the red, colonial red? Sorry, to the left? Yeah, weathered copper. That was the choice we originally had. That was the choice that's in the other renders that appears darker. And so in response to that, we moved up one row into the Sierra Tan, Pebble, and Walnut choice and found Walnut to be the one that we thought would be the most appropriate.
Because in all your renderings, it feels like it's closer to that Sierra Tan.
I don't think that we, yeah, and I don't think that we would have a concern using the Sierra Tan.
I think it would be preferable to me, and I don't like to get down into the weeds too much on this, but I think it would just make the tower be less dominant.
Heavy.
Yeah,
I agree.
We'd be happy with that change.
that's Sierra Tan.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Great suggestion, Commissioner. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Don't be a smart aleck.
Reclosing the public hearing. Okay. Okay.
Now, the applicant was agreeable to Quarton Steel for the planter edging. I don't think that was part of your straw vote, but if you'd like to include that as a condition, that could be part of the.
I just think from a longevity standpoint, it's going to be a better choice.
I'd be okay.
Fine.
Yep. Yes.
Great. And then Kate is going to bring up a condition of approval that was alluded to previously regarding trash storage and using the consolidated city facility across the alley.
That would be preferable, I believe.
Yeah, for sure.
That sounds perfect. Sounds good to me, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
And separately, the Planning Commission is continuing the sign permit application to a date uncertain. Section 5, sign permit approval. I'll turn it over to Pat for the specifics on the amendments to the resolution.
Yeah, perfect. So because we do have all of the entitlements in the singular resolution with the aforementioned changes or modifications, we would simply approve that resolution. We would remove section 5 and all references to sign permit 24-1639 with, of course, a continuation of sign permit 24-1639 to a date uncertain, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so if I make a resolution and just say, and
What he said.
modifications and additions of all the resolutions as just discussed. Okay. I move that we adopt resolution number 24-1636 per attachment 1, approving design review 24-1636, conditional use permit 24-1638, and finding said action exempt from CEQA, with the sign permit 24-1639 to be continued to a date uncertain. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Whiten?
No.
Commissioner Dubin?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg?
Yes.
Chair Sadler?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. That was our last regular item of the evening. We'll be moving on to other business, should there be any other business.
There are no staff reports this evening, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, are there any committee, commissioner, staff reports, or commissioner comments, questions?
I'd like, can we get an update on the promenade at some point?
Yes, I don't happen to have one this evening, but I can look into it for you.
Yeah, our next meeting, if you could give us an update of what's, I kind of hear through the rumor mill, but it'd be nice to have more specifics.
Yes, I attended the Public Works presentation on the Laguna Canyon Road Protect and Connect improvements at the Suzy Q on the 5th of September. And they have their whole presentation on the website, city website. It's really good. And I recommend everybody look at it. And what they had, there were a lot of people there. I don't know how many were there in numbers, 50 at least. And they had a different format than they've had in the other meetings, which the previous formats were traditional, just like this. Presenter at the front and an audience with chairs. And they had, what they had was 7 stations and no seating area. And the one station was the overview of the project, the length of the road and the 6 sections that they've broken Laguna Canyon Road down into. And so each section had its own desk. Desk was staffed by the engineering company. And they had an easel, and they had large drawings for each section with 2 options. And what they're showing is the location of the bicycle lanes, whether it was a Class 1 separate bicycle lane or it was a bicycle lane on the road, shared with the road, and then the location of the pedestrian walkway, which is always on the inland side. And the bike lane options are either in each direction on the road with a shared road or a separate Class 1 on the on the other side. And they had they had a plan, and they had the sketches
Is
of
this
what
with
it
the
looked
power
like.
poles now undergrounded? Is that
Yeah,
part of it?
that's all gone.
Part of
Yeah, and so they had sketches, and at the corner of the major presentation poster for each section, they had a QR code, and everybody used their phone, used the QR code, and then you went to a questionnaire about each section. And it was very specific. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Very thoughtful.
Wow.
And I walked away like, wow, this is
That's how you do it.
That's how it should be done here. Because otherwise it just devolves into this, angry groups of people being frustrated. And this way, there was not only the very explicit drawings and sketches and alternatives, but also a staff member who was an expert on that particular section, and then you could opine on what you thought about each of it. Anyway, it's all on the city website, and it's very well done, so I recommend.
Cool.
So all that is predicated on undergrounding on the top.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
250 million.
Well, no, it's 140.
Oh.
But right now. And they're going to publish the results of the questionnaire too, so that'll be good. So,
Cool.
Great.
Thank you for that.
Yes, well, it's been a long evaluation process. Councilmember Whalen and I were on the Laguna Road Task Force, which I believe was in 2015 or something.
Yeah.
And so
sounds right.
we've been talking about this for a long time, but, okay, great. Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn to our next regularly scheduled meeting?
Which is on the 3rd, I believe, is it?
Second.
I move that we adjourn to our next regularly scheduled meeting on October 3rd.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Whiten?
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg?
Yes.
Chair Sadler?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are officially adjourned.